Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and give it just a few more minutes. I know we have some relatively contentious items on the agenda today, so I'm going to give just a few more minutes for folks to trickle in, and then I'll call the meeting to order. Thank you. Are we ready, Cora? Sorry.
What's that?
Surprise. All right, thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the June 4th, 2025 Technical Review Committee meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. The first item we have is a request to approve the April 2nd, 2025 TRC meeting minutes. Have you all had a chance to review these minutes? Yes, any questions, comments? All right, can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, approved, thank you. All right, our next item is item number 2, the Johnson RV Park. This is a request to continue to the June 18, 2025 Technical Review Committee meeting. Do we have any questions or comments about this? All right, can I have a motion?
Motion to continue?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, this item, Johnson RV Park, is continued to the June 18, 2025 Technical Review Committee meeting at this location on that date. All right, item number 3 is the Water Sound Origins Temporary Circulation Road. Good morning.
Is that better? Yeah, there we go. This is a minor development order application submitted by Interlight Engineering on behalf of St. Joe. They're requesting to develop a temporary circulation road on 4.97 plus or minus acres. It has a future land use and a zoning district of Bay Walton Sector Plan, Village Center, and long-term conservation. Property is located in District 5 and located on the east side of Swanee Drive and identified by the parcel number in your staff report. Would you please enter the staff report into the record?
So entered.
Also, I handed out the right-of-way review we received from Andrea, if you could enter that into the record.
So entered.
So right-of-way did have a few comments for some additional information. Also a condition for some road improvements at 98 and Breaker Street. There were also planning comments and floodplain comments, similar comments, and that's related to their wetland impact permits, just some clarification probably. Otherwise, we're missing environmental and fire comments. Other than that, I don't have anything else unless you have questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Good morning. I'm David
Morning.
Smith with Inlet Engineering, and this request is for a connection road from the intersection of Longleaf 3 and Arborview 1 that goes north up to Origins Parkway. So what it'll do is it'll allow residents the opportunity in a lot faster time to be able to enter and exit their neighborhoods, and also this greatly increases emergency response time. So it's just a roadway, and as far as the comments, they're all minor. I do want to coordinate with you, Andrea, on the comment on breakers, because I have had a conversation with Chance Powell and DOT. So I'd like to, we can easily coordinate on that. So everything is minor. We can address the comments, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Why is it a temporary roadway?
Because in the future, this will be West Bay Parkway, which will be a 4-lane arterial. And this is one of the lanes, but currently that's in design, and there may be some changes to it.
And is this going to be a public road when all
Right
is
now,
said and done?
this is a private road, but ultimately, yes, it will be a Department of Transportation roadway.
Okay, and it's going to meet any fire apparatus requirements for,
Absolutely.
for radius and weight and all of those things?
Absolutely.
I ask because we haven't had comments from fire.
It's 24 feet wide, so it exceeds their minimum requirement of 20 feet. And as far as the weight, it's designed as any other roadway in the neighborhoods.
Okay. Okay. Any questions for the applicant? No? No. All right. This is a minor, so I will go ahead and open it up to the public. If there are any comments or questions of a technical nature, we will hear them now. Seeing none. Rosanna, what is your recommendation?
Because we do not have fire or environmental, and this is going to impact some wetlands, I would feel more comfortable continuing this for 2 weeks just to ensure we have those from those reviewers.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, just based on the absence. I really would like to see what Brad and Sammy have to say here. This is a temporary road, and it does feel a little overbearing to do so, but I'm inclined to agree with you. David, do you have anything to say about that?
Of course, our goal would be able to move forward contingent upon, addressing their comments. And as far as the fire comment, it's a straight road and it exceeds any minimum requirement. So I can't speak for Sammy, but we do a lot of projects and reviews. He does a lot of reviews on our projects, so it's going to meet the fire requirements. I know he's not here to say that, but as far as environmental, we're part of the Regional and General Permit Ecosystem Management Agreement. So we have to meet those requirements, which are more stringent than the county's requirements. So we are going through that process. So I do not see any issues with environmental as well, because what we're having to do for those federal and state agency requirements exceeds the county requirements. So
Okay.
very respectfully, we would request to move forward contingent upon addressing those comments, please.
Yeah, you know what, that does make a lot of sense, and I do understand that as well. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to ask for a motion to conditionally approve this, to move forward to the director's approval once all conditions and outstanding comments have been received and satisfied. If I can have a motion to that effect, unless there's questions, comments, or concerns.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, the next item, Inlet Cove Plat. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, this is the Inlet Cove Plat. It's a request to approve by final plat. Project number PLA 25000055. It is a plat application that is consistent with the previously approved DO, MIN 24000033, which was a different number in Citizen Serve, but it is submitted by Volker Surveying LLC on behalf of Inlet Cove Investments Group LLC. They are requesting to plat 12 single-family lots and associated infrastructure on 1.45 acres. The project site has a future land use category of residential and a zoning district of neighborhood infill. The property is in District 5. It's located at 102 Walton Palm Road and 74 Irish Way. It's identified by the parcel numbers in your packet. Would you please enter the staff report into the record?
So entered.
This particular project does have some outstanding comments from county surveying, right-of-way, environmental planning, and planning. I believe that we've received reviews. Yeah, we've received reviews from everybody except for the utility provider, which their comment will be on by signing the Mylar. We received a resubmittal this week, which has been routed back out to our reviewers with outstanding comments. I did note that it didn't appear to have a response to comments letter associated with it. I don't know how, where everybody's at with that re-review, but those comments have not yet been fully re-reviewed and cleared at this point in time.
Understood. Is the applicant here?
I do believe I saw Mr. Volker come in.
Ron Velker, Velker Surveying.
Good morning.
Here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? No.
We've gotten the comments back. We've addressed all the comments and sent it back for a review. So we're just waiting to move forward at this point.
Okay. I think based on the nature of plats at the county and state level at this time, approval here would lend itself to that preliminary plat approval. And we've sort of set a precedent here where we want to see that these plats are substantially more complete prior to approval. So I'm going to ask that we go ahead and continue this for 2 weeks to give staff time to look through the resubmittal and ensure that it's consistent with state standards and our code.
Well, obviously we want to be moving forward.
Understood.
So I ask that the guys approve it contingent upon the comments being addressed or.
I'll consider that request. Kelly, do you have a recommendation?
I have to agree that this would, based on our process, if it's approved here, it's considered preliminary plat approval, and they could pull building permits for 50% of the lots at this point in time.
That's
So,
my concern as well.
Yes, sir. We don't yet have the engineer's cost estimate. We don't, of course, I don't know if there's going to be a letter of credit required. So we don't have the final inspection letter. I'm not sure where the infrastructure's at in terms of being complete. And this project, I don't think it affects this request so much, but this project connects to another project that's very similar. There's a connection road that goes between, I believe it's Carson Way and Walton Palm Road. So we want to make sure, because that road is going to impact two different developments, we need to make sure that all the infrastructure passes before, before we get final approval on this one. But at this point in time, I think it's appropriate to continue for 2 weeks. And since it's already in the system, I think 2 weeks is appropriate. If we didn't have the re-review in already, then I would ask for a month, but I think 2 weeks is fair.
Okay, thank you. We have any comments, questions? Yes.
All the infrastructure's in place and it's pending approval at this point. And as I understand, as far as pulling permits and everything to start building, understand that the planning department's, I think, 10 weeks out now, right? So if that's the case, I go ahead and ask that we go ahead and move forward with this, because by the time the plat's approved, this will still be in plan. Even if we got it submitted the plans today for one of the lots, we're looking at a couple of months before we even get an approval, before it goes to the building department. So we obviously want to be moving forward.
Understood. Thank you. Again, any questions or concerns from the committee here? No. All right. I do appreciate the need to move forward with this, Mr. Velker, but I'm going to heed our staff's recommendation and continue this for 2 weeks to allow for our other staff to review and ensure that it's consistent with all the requirements. We'll conditionally approve that at that time if it does so, and we'll get it moving forward. Thank you. Can I have a motion to continue, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, item number 5.
Good morning. This is for All In Credit Union Santa Rosa Beach. It's a request to approve by development order. Project number MIN 25000085. This is a minor development order application submitted by North Star Engineering Services on behalf of All In Federal Credit Union, requesting to develop a 4,115 square foot bank on 0.67 acres with a future land use of mixed use in a zoning district of village mixed use. Property is located in District 4, located at 4379 US Highway 98 West, and can be identified the parcel number in your packets. I enter the staff report into the record, please.
Yes. Did you submit some public comment with this
Not
one,
for
or
this
is that
one.
okay?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So entered. Thank you.
Thank you. On this project, the only outstanding comments at this time are for the design review for the scenic corridor, which Tim is working through that with the applicant. They actually have a meeting today to work through that. Besides that, all the comments have been satisfied.
Including yours
Correct.
from planning. Yeah.
Mhm.
It just needs to be updated. Is that?
That's actually the design review comments.
Oh, under the planning staff comments. Okay.
Correct.
I understand. Okay. Is the applicant here?
Good morning, Derek McCarty, North Star Engineering Services.
Morning.
We are here for the developmental approval of this minor change to the sandbar plat. The sandbar was approved, and if you've driven by there, you've seen that this property has already been cleared as part of that master development order. We're sitting on the same property as that master development order approval, same parking lot, same drainage systems, everything, and virtually the same footprint of a bank that was on the master development order. So yeah, we're here for approval of that. We do understand the outstanding comments with Mr. Brown. He has agreed to meet with us. We've got one landscaping question, and we're working out some colors between the All-In Credit Union and the planning department, just to make sure our colors meet your code for the building and signage, and those are the outstanding items. So if there's any questions you have on the property, I'm available. If there's any questions on the building, the architect is also available.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Cardi, MCCRTY.
Thank you.
So has this application been to the design review board?
No, we have not been to the design review board. After the meeting today with Mr. Brown, we'll be resubmitting with those landscaping and color comments.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. This is a minor, so I'll ask anybody from the public who has any comments, questions, concerns of a technical nature to please come forward. See none. What's staff's recommendation?
Staff recommends to conditionally approve pending the satisfaction of the design comments.
Very good. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Tim.
Good morning. Item number 6, Inlet Beach Circle K. It's actually, that's how the project came in. It's actually not a Circle K anymore. They're calling it Inlet Beach C site. This is a minor development order application submitted by Bowman Consulting Group requesting approval to develop a 4,700 square foot convenience store, gas station, restaurant, and associated infrastructure on 1.63 acres with the future land use of mixed use and a zoning of village mixed use. Property is located in District 5 on the south side of Highway 98 East. There are no outstanding comments. This was approved in April by the TRC committee. However, they failed to post a sign, so it didn't meet the public notice requirements. So we had to bring it back to fulfill that. I handed out a number of emails we've received. All these emails address the ingress egress on South Wall Street, not the project itself. I think people are very happy to see that eyesore of a gas station go away and something much nicer replace it. I will mention that at the last TRC, they did add a Sonic to this project, so that's the restaurant portion of it. It's going to be one side of the restaurant will be, I'm sorry, one side of the building will be the convenience store, the other side of the building will be a Sonic. No drive-through, but they will have a walk-up window. With that, I'd like to enter the staff report and the emails we received in the record, please.
So entered.
And I'll entertain any questions you may have, but we're really here just to fulfill the public notification requirements.
And how are the, looks like there's quite a few unchecked boxes in your design review checklist. Are they scheduled for DRB?
Yes, they're going to the DRB. Yeah, I do have planning is outstanding. That should not, it should say met. They're going to the DRB tomorrow. They're scheduled for tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, that is an error where it says planning under, that should say met.
Okay. Very good. Is the applicant here?
Hello, this is Victoria Diaz with Bowman Consulting, and we
Morning.
are here to request the approval for this C store. And if you have any question or concern, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments?
Oh, I do have one question. The cross-access easement, have you guys worked on that with the adjacent property?
Oh, we just got the comment yesterday, so we are working in that cross-access easement today. So we are gonna submit it to INEGORP and.
What cross-access easement are we referring to?
This one on the western portion.
Okay, okay. So that's not settled, that other access could potentially not be a thing?
I don't think it would not be a thing because it's been historically there, so
Okay.
it's just a matter of working out the details.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
So let me provide some clarification.
Thank you, Tim.
I didn't realize that my staff report was actually changed after I turned it in. So these comments are shown to be outstanding, so they will have to address them. However, they're not my comments, so I didn't realize they were even there, and that's why it says not met under planning, because these additional 6 comments were added.
In your absence, right? Is that
Yes,
what happened?
correct.
Right, that's right.
But they have nothing to do with the scenic corridor, so it will be going to the DRB tomorrow.
Right.
But they will have to resolve these comments before we'll issue their development order.
Yes, sir. All right, thank you. This is a minor. I will again call any folks from the public that have any questions, comments, or concerns of a technical nature to go ahead and come to the front, please.
Morning. My name is Rich Jaffe. I live in Inlet Beach. It's Jaffe. In fact, I'm intimately familiar with this location. My folks built a small house at the bottom end of South Wall Street 55 years ago. We live on the other side, in the north side of Inlet Beach.
No, sorry. The bottom end is
Well,
it further south or close to?
Closer to the Gulf.
Okay.
The community in general would be perfectly happy to see the gas station that's there upgraded and something new. I don't need to remind you that the community, the county, and the state spent years and millions of dollars to improve the pedestrian and bicycle access in that area by building an underpass. It's right there. That underpass is designed to channel all the foot traffic down 2 streets, South Wall and Winston. The concept of adding the access and egress for this gas station to a tiny, barely 2-lane residential street is just stupid. There are currently 2 access points off of 98 to this property, and there's nothing wrong with those. They work just fine. When you start adding all of the traffic that is going to come and go from this place to that tiny residential street and then jam that up trying to get onto 98, you're creating a disaster. We have worked too long and too hard to make that intersection and that area safer for pedestrians, kids, carts, bicycles, and now golf carts. The other thing I will point out to you is I believe it's that western access you were talking about is basically that little area, parking area in front of Shades. It comes off of 30A. 30A, you know what happens to that during season. It gets jammed. In fact, the county commissioners agreed that the Alvin's Island project was too damn dangerous for that area, and they torpedoed it. While it's being litigated, the entire point of it was the safety of the pedestrian traffic around that area. When 30A gets jammed up at that light, people are going to come off of 30A and are going to go right through that access, right over towards this gas station, and where are they going to go? South Wall Street. It is the only possible in and out point for all of the traffic that's going to be going into that gas station. Now, nobody's really thrilled, quite frankly, about a Sonic being there because of the garbage it's going to generate inside the underpass, down Wall Street, and on the beach, because you know damn well it's going down there. But we can't argue that. What we can argue is the inherent threat to public safety at that intersection that's going to be caused by their stupid plan to put the access and egress to this place on South Wall Street. Keep it where it is on 98. You'll be fine. It's going to be a what is. But when you jam all that traffic onto that tiny street in that one little spot, it's going to do damage not only to the community, but I guarantee you, people are going to get hurt. We would respectfully request that you kick it back to these guys and have them come up with another plan. And the simplest answer is just use the existing access and egress that's there on 98. They don't need to dump it onto a small residential street. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Andrew, can you approach this a little bit and explain, from your perspective, why that access is located on South Wall? It's my understanding this was a public works request.
That's correct. So in accordance with the code, there's several sections that speak to that. 50404, separation of access. So you have 3 access points in that small location along 98. So getting rid of the one in the middle puts everything in compliance with the Land Development Code. And as well as section 611 for the scenic corridor for 98. The intent of that is to reduce curb cuts. So that meets that intent as well. One more, corner clearance is also taken into consideration.
I do tend to agree with Mr. Jaffe's assessment of the situation that where it's located could present additional vehicular pedestrian conflict. No more so though, I would wager than it being on 98. But I am cognizant of that idea. But I'm also very aware that we have code standards that we've required the applicant to meet. Will the applicant approach, please? Is this the original layout, or did it come in initially off of 98 with using the?
I believe, yes, this is the original layout that we have to do the access. And yes, and also before to do the layout and everything, we just follow the code, and that's what we did here, so.
Okay. Understood, thank you.
Maybe to look into this further, we could request an additional study, perhaps? Traffic circulation study and a pedestrian movement study?
Right, I agree. And the separation distance from the US 98 also has to be considered with the review.
Right. Okay. Let's go ahead and hear a motion to that effect. Let's continue this and provide some opportunity to collect that additional information from the applicant and to have a meeting to kind of go through some of this. You think 30 days would be sufficient to collect that information, to create and collect that information?
Well, I think we could ask them, but I think they probably don't know how long that's going to take. I mean, my suggestion would be to table it, but we can bring it back at any time.
Yeah.
And once they submit it, we review it, we schedule it for the next TRC meeting. That way, if it takes them 45 days or whatever, takes them 15 days, I mean, we can bring it back immediately after they provide us the information.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's have a motion to table the item for now so we can work through some of this. And like, I'm not making any sort of promise here that the layout's going to change. I really, I do think that we need to look at this a little bit more. So that's where we're
Did we
at.
set up a meeting with them, Public Works, and us then?
Yes, that's what we should do. Yeah, moving forward, absolutely. But can I have a motion to table the item, please?
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, this item will be tabled until after a meeting, and we can work through some of these concerns a little bit more. Item number 7.
Item 7, Satinwood subdivision. Request to approve by development order, project number MIN 24000060. This is a minor development order application submitted by David Forstrom on behalf of Children's Holding LLC, requesting to develop an 8 single-family lot subdivision on 1.24 acres with a future land use of residential and a zoning district of neighborhood infill. Property is located in District 5 on the west side of Satinwood Drive, north of Starview Terrace, and south of Seacroft Drive, and can be identified by the parcel number in your packet. Can I please enter the staff report and the additional public comment that I gave you this morning into the record?
Yes, so entered. Thank you. I know this has been kicking around for a while. We've had a number of iterations. How are we feeling about the latest here?
I think that they fulfilled the request that we were asking of them. Definitely changed since the first iteration, for the better, I believe.
I see we have some. Are these other public comments in the back of this, these other exhibits? What are these? Thomas?
Correct, yeah, there's 2 in the packet, and then there's 3 more that I gave you this morning.
Okay. And there is, if I'm not mistaken, a requested sidewalk buyout on the one side there.
They agreed to extend the sidewalk to the south.
So it's not a buyout, it's a
Trade,
a
basically.
trade,
Yeah.
if you will. Okay.
Correct. They didn't have enough room to put a sidewalk and the lots that they were asking for, so, on both sides.
Public Works is good with that extension offsite? Okay. Thanks, Eric.
Good morning, David Forstrom.
Morning.
We did have a lot of meetings with staff, and I think as Stephen kind of indicated, they all ended up resulting in a better project. We initially had 2 access roads in Satinwood. We worked with Andre. We only have 1 point of access, which reduces traffic conflicts. We did offer the sidewalk along Satinwood Boulevard, which is pretty heavy pedestrian, I think, towards the beach. On the south side of the subdivision, a compatibility landscape buffer was not required, but we volunteered to go ahead and add a landscape buffer also on the south side. And we also added more street trees. We moved street trees up along Satinwood, so there's more street trees than the code requires. And they all, I think, work in a much better and aesthetically better subdivision. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Again, this is a minor development. I'll call any member of the public that has any technical comments, questions, or concerns to come forward. Seeing none? Oh, yes, ma'am, come on.
Hi, good morning. Michelle Trubateras. I am a resident in Gulfview Heights subdivision. And my only concern, and I'm not a technical per se as far as all of that, and so of course I understand your position for planning that if it meets with the LDC comp plan. I just want to express my concern because although Satinwood Edge is on the edge of Gulfview Heights, the Gulfview Heights lots are about 9375 square feet. They're putting 8 houses. I think 6 would be more reasonable and conducive to the area, especially because of the access, the one access road. And just requesting that they I know that the gentleman that Mr. Forstrom had mentioned there, they have like leaving some trees, but leaving a little bit more. That would be my only concern. And I just wanted to come here and express that and hope that you guys will be mindful of the developments that are continuing. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say that there has been a lot of back and forth with the project manager and the engineering team, working through density issues and layout as well. And part of those conversations were certainly related to some of your concerns, ma'am. What's staff recommendation?
Staff recommends to conditionally approve Satinwood subdivision upon satisfaction of the conditions listed in the staff report.
Thank you. David, what I would like to see here moving forward in this next set is a crosswalk from lots 1, 2, 3 to the HOA building as well, and some pedestrian access to the front door of that building, please.
Yes, we can add that based on conditional approval and have staff review before the development order.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we have a recommendation. Can I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 8.
This is the Spring Hills Amendment. It's a request to approve by development order. It's project number MIN 25-000102. This is a minor development order application submitted by Henderson Engineering on behalf of the Henderson Real Estate Investments, LLC. They're requesting to amend the previously approved major development order MAJ 24-000017 to add 4 single-family lots. They're also reconfiguring the lot layout, adding an additional access, and increasing the overall acreage by 2 acres. Total acreage is 29.3 plus or minus acres. It has a future land use of rural residential and a zoning district of rural village. The property is located in District 2 and it's located at 2965 US Highway 90 East and identified by the parcel number in your staff report. If you would please enter the staff report into the record.
So entered.
I also provided you the right-of-way comments from Andrea, if you would enter those as well.
So entered. Thank you.
Those were minor comments we had remaining from right-of-way, environmental. We are still waiting for fire comments and updated review from the school board and the health department. I did want to mention this is just an addition to a major development by 4 lots. So they originally came in with 48. We're increasing it to 52. Planning. Yes.
Was there also, did you say a 2-acre increase in the
Yes.
area of the development site?
There was a survey discrepancy with the first submittal. I can let Mr. Henderson discuss that further. So that's where that additional 2 acres, which allowed a higher density for the project.
Right.
As far as planning comments, they were minor. We did have concerns initially with the stub streets. With the new lot layout, we did not review the major development order as a phased development. I did discuss this with Andrea, and we may be able to put in some signage, which the applicant is okay with putting some dead-end signs. And shortly after submitting for a phase 2, that will connect these stub streets.
Is that a right-of-way or sort of like a flag lot there abutting the eastern boundary?
No.
Or western boundary, excuse me? It's just a skinny parcel?
Are you talking about on the east?
On the east, yes. No, the west, excuse me.
The west.
Yeah.
Flag lot.
Yes, so
That is common
I
area.
can't tell because of the labeling if it's connected to the one on the north side, the larger parcel to the north, or if it is its own individual little parcel. No, it does look like a separate parcel. What is the, and
Oh,
maybe
okay.
John, do you have
Yes, I
some
think what you're
information?
saying. They need to show me.
This little guy right here. This little skinny guy, little skinny guy.
separate lot.
That's a separate lot, but it's not a right of way or?
No, no,
Okay,
we did
so it's
look
just
into
a-
that.
Just a little skinny lot there, okay.
Oh, no, this is a separate lot.
Yeah.
That's outside.
It is
I,
actually,
right, I understood it was outside. Yeah.
I think it's RV up in
Yeah.
the front, but there's not toward the back. But I have to buffer the whole
yes.
property boundary since that's it.
We did actually
Even
look
though
into
it's
that.
very-
And it's a legal,
It is a lot of
RV?
record. I actually did look into the history to make sure that was not a right-of-way, because it does appear to be a right-of-way.
right.
It is a
and
very
would
skinny lot
lend
of record.
itself to a stub street, having a right of way there.
Yeah, that's just-
Yes.
Okay.
Other than that, the only other comment, and it was more informational, was the block lengths. Some of the blocks, particularly the lots on the north, did exceed 500 feet. The applicant has agreed to provide some cross-block connections for pedestrians moving forward, so that will happen with the resubmittal.
Okay.
That is all I have, unless you have questions. I'll turn it over to Mr. Henderson.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Hey, good morning, John Henderson, Henderson Engineering.
Morning.
The cross block or the pedestrian accesses, how wide do they have to be? I'm not sure that there's any guidelines in the code. I mean, if I just put a 10-foot common area in between a couple of lots, does that provide the necessary?
I would suspect so.
Yeah,
5
okay, yeah,
foot.
that's easy, no
Yeah.
problem. The only question I really had was, Andrew, I just got your comments yesterday about the bus stop. It's just a school bus stop. That's
Okay.
not really a transit.
Can you
public
clarify that
I'll
on the
just,
plans?
yeah, I just moved it from one spot over to there. Initially, the school board wanted it out on Highway 90, and Michelle and I talked about that. We didn't think that was safe, so we put it where the common area is, but that's internal, and they really didn't want to drive around. So now that I had the connection to 183 North, that just was an obvious place to put it. So that was, as far as the fire department, I mean, nothing's really changed. All the radii are the same, the fire hydrants are the same. It's been approved by them before, so, I mean, I can't see any issues. It's actually better now because there's 2 entrances.
Sure.
For them, you know, so.
What is the large sort of undeveloped portion there with, on the south side? My glasses, apparently I need a new set because I can't read this writing.
There's a southwest corner, there's a common area.
The whole portion.
South side is gonna be
Yeah.
commercial.
Oh, it's a commercial.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
2
okay.
commercial lots on each side of the,
That
entry.
entryway, okay.
Yeah.
That
It
makes
kind
sense.
of provides a buffer between the grain silo across the street and the homes.
Sure. Yeah, what sort of, I'm assuming the owner will sell those off, and whoever wants to develop it will come back in for a,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
those will require separate development orders, yeah.
very good. Okay. Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Let's see, this is a minor development, so again, I will open it up to, technical comment, questions, concerns from the public. Seeing none, Rosanna, what's your recommendation?
I do think these are minor comments that can easily be addressed. I would like to conditionally approve this for final approval by the director, once all outstanding comments are addressed.
Thank you. And can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 9.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Number 9 is the Village of Santa Rosa plat. Request approved by final plat. It's project number PLA 24-000008. It's been reviewed by myself. This is a plat application consistent with previously approved MAJ 21-000020 and LTM 23-000029. It is submitted by Kevin Robinson on behalf of the Villages of Santa Rosa LLC, requesting to plat 32 single-family lots on 4.77 plus or minus acres. The project site has a future land use of residential and a zoning category of neighborhood infill. The property is located in District 5 and can be located at 853 Chat Hawley Road and is identified by the staff report or the parcel ID in your staff report. Mr. Chair, all comments have been addressed. The on-record engineer has certified it. I have the Mylar in my office that has been signed by all appropriate signature blocks. It's ready to move to the second meeting, BCC meeting in July. All fees have been paid. May I enter the staff report into the record, please?
So entered.
Do you have any questions before I turn it over to the applicant?
Any questions? No. No, thank you, Bob.
I'll turn it over to the applicant.
So, before that, all fees have been paid. All items have been addressed. What's the infrastructure looking like?
Morning, Kevin
Morning.
Robertson from Village of Santa Rosa.
Is the infrastructure in?
It's complete.
No letter of credit?
For the sidewalks going in front of the units only, all the sidewalks on Chat Holly and JD Miller are complete.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I have a motion to approve, please.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 10.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item number 10 is Thompson Wood Phase 2, request to approve by final plat, project number PLA 25-000057 is being reviewed by myself. This is a plat application consistent with previously approved DO MAJ 23-000023 and is submitted by Nautilus Civil Engineering on behalf of Catherine Development LLC, requesting to plat 33 single-family lots and associated infrastructure on 4.26 plus or minus acres. The project has a future land use of residential in the zoning district of neighborhood infill. It is in District 4, located at 305 Thompson Road, and is identified by the parcel number in your staff report. Mr. Chair, the staff report, as you remember, is just a placeholder. All comments have been addressed. The applicant has been, the owner has been provided the fees and as of this morning, I haven't got to check this morning, but I don't believe all the fees have been paid. It will not go to the board until those fees, but it's my understanding that they're working on it. May I enter the staff report into the record, please?
So entered.
And I will turn it over to the applicant if you don't have any questions for me.
I do have just a question. So just for clarity, in regards to the placeholder idea of the report. So this report has four non-complied checks here, right? So I've got surveyor, right away, you, and GIS. So those, you're saying that these are addressed
All have
in
been
their
addressed.
entirety. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
And the applicant has the Mylar in his hands that he will turn in properly after our meeting. So can I enter staff report into the record?
Yes, it's entered.
And
Thank
I
you.
will turn it over to Curtis.
Thank you, Bob.
Don't have any questions. So everything's done. I think we got the fees yesterday or Monday, and he should be here to pay them today.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? All right. Can I have a motion to approve, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Item number 11.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is the Sunliner Diner. Request to approve by Development Order Project MIN 25-000094. It's being reviewed by myself. This is a minor development order application submitted by Interlight Engineering Corporation on behalf of Blue Water Landing 30A LLC, requesting to develop a 10,086 square feet restaurant on 1.77 plus or minus acres of future land use and mixed use in the zoning district of small neighborhood. The property is located in District 5 and is located on the west side of County Highway 30A West, north of Jetty Road, and can be identified by the parcel number in your staff report. Mr. Chair, all comments have been addressed. May I enter the staff report into the record, please?
So entered.
And may I also include the public comments, that these are only the public comments received since the last TRC when you entered that packet into the record.
So entered. Thank you.
And can I turn it over to the applicant if you have no questions for me?
Any questions for Bob? All right, thank you,
Thank
Bob. Morning.
Oh,
Again.
good morning. For the record, I'm David Smith with Interlight Engineering, and I'm also here with Levi Wiegand. He's with DAG Architects. He's the project architect. And we came before the TRC committee on May the 7th, and we did a full presentation, which we're prepared to do again, if you all would like. Or our thought was we would do an abbreviated version of the presentation and just hit some of the highlights. There's a few points I want to make, and then I know there's members of the audience that want to speak, and then we would like to come up at the end if we could, please, and address any questions.
Yeah, and to that point, I will allow an abbreviated presentation, knowing that you've previously presented. I will also request that members of the public do not come up here and repeat all of the same comments previously made, as they are on record. Please, any comments, abbreviate them, as the applicant's going to do as well. Thank you.
What I would like to do is just do just a brief history of how we got to where we are, because I think that's very important.
It is.
So Blue Water Landing was submitted originally on February the 5th, 2020. And it went through an extensive review, coordination with resident staff, and probably set the record for a number of meetings and TRCs in the history of Walton County, I would assume. But it was issued a development order on July the 5th, 2021. So the request before you this morning for the Sunliner Diner is part of the development order that was issued. It's the commercial component that's labeled as Phase 2. This is the approved master plan that was approved as part of the Blue Water Landing development order. So we're here discussing Phase 2, which was approved for up to 20,000 square feet of commercial. I want to point out Sunliner Diner is 10,000 square feet. It's half of what was approved and extensively discussed and reviewed at this time by all parties and ultimately approved. And I do want to point out that members of the audience who are going to speak also spoke in support at the Board of County Commissioner meeting, that was heard before the issuance of the development order. So I understand there's concerns with the scale and size and some other things that members of the audience will present, but I do want to point out this was thoroughly discussed. It's entitled, it's part of the approved development order, and we meet all the rules, regulations of the Walton County Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan. I know it was very important back at that time that we have no deviations, and I spoke at the last TRC meeting about that, and we meet the code, and that's what we did. So I think it's equally as important that I presented this, and I'll be brief. This was the original plan that was submitted. Many of you, I know one of you, remembers this plan in detail.
Intimately.
Yes. And this was 186 units. But I do want to point out the commercial parcel was 0.6 acres with a maximum, you can see it here, square footage of 6,000 square feet. And I understand the density was high on this plan, and there was concern. This was met with great concern and resistance from basically all the neighborhoods. And we had a lot of meetings in which we all worked together, and we came up with what we have today, which is 31 single-family homes, 20,000 square feet of commercial. But the original application was 0.6 acres. What was ultimately approved is 1.8 acres, just shy of 1.8 acres. This was 6,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet, because we met the code and we had no deviations. The requirement of small neighborhood, as you all know, is 5% of the development must be commercial, so we met that requirement. And that's how we got to where we are today, which is very important. 20,000 square feet, we're at 10,000 square feet. I want to highlight a couple other things, and then I'll turn it over to the audience. We had 3 community meetings with the audience. First one was November the 20th, 2024. December the 5th, 2024 was the second one. Third one was April the 21st, 2025. So we have worked with the residents. We made some changes. There was a big concession we made. The building was originally red. That's part of the theme of the other diners that Shaul Zislin owns. We changed it to aqua. The color was better received. I won't say everyone said we love it, but you know, it was a lot better received, and there was support for that color. So in my closing, the reason we were continued at May 7th was because we went above and beyond, and Levi coordinated lighting studies, sound studies, which we provided at that meeting, and we submitted as part of the record. We were asked by Mac, who was the chairperson at that time, to continue so that staff had an opportunity to review those studies. We formally submitted and uploaded those into the portal. The lighting study, I want to point out, is signed and sealed by a professional, and it will not be visible, you know, as identified in the lighting study from across the lake. Also, the sound study was included, which staff has had an opportunity to review those, and that's the reason we were continued. So all the comments we've addressed, there's been a resubmittal. All the comments are very minor. So we would respectfully request to move forward, but that'll conclude my opening presentation. But if we can come up at the end, please, we'll address any comments, and obviously we'll answer any questions that you all may have as well.
Any questions? Currently, no. I do. Maybe not a question, but I am going to ask if you could just briefly speak a little bit more about the sound and lighting studies that were conducted, sort of what went into that, maybe some of the details of how that was completed.
Levi Wiegand with DAG Architects. So we'll start with the acoustic study. All right, so much of this is, you know, potentially, I guess, opinion-based. And so what we tried to do at first was we took the existing Sunliner in Gulf Shores, and we actually took our little audio reading, and we walked around at it without the owner knowing, right? And so, and I'll share this with the audience as well, but effectively, you know, when you walk up, you could hear it lightly. And so this is a subjective, a qualitative thing, that within the property line, it's about being audio heard at the front door. So then what we've done since then, which was the request of the staff, was to provide an engineer drawing set. So,
And the audio is just adjacent to the front entrance of the structure itself. It doesn't wrap the building, is that correct?
Yep, here's an image of it. It's a soffit speaker. It's a low volume, you know, ambient music device. So then we had the engineers put together a plan here. And so this is engineer drawing. You can see the locations of the speakers are on this sidewalk, the main entry zone. They're set at a 32 decibels. We have a 7.68 decibel attenuation within 50 feet and a 0 decibel within 100 feet is what has been engineered. So again, you know, the goal here is not to have, you know, the beach party and all the sort of audio. It's about creating the environment. It's about welcoming people to the experience. And like I said, it's centered around the entry into the diner.
So you just for clarity here, you started this with the term opinion based, right? But then you used words that are used scientifically as in decibel levels and things
Correct.
like that.
Yep.
So is this an opinion or is this an engineered opinion?
So the first study that we presented at the last meeting was opinion-based. We had a video file. We took the audio decibels as we walked up to the existing Sunliner Diner in Gulf Shores. This is a new condition here. a lot of the discussion was about, how does it transfer with wind, or, where are the speakers located? So then we had the engineers actually locate the speakers and show the radius of decibel impact. So we transitioned from a qualitative to a specific engineered solution here to provide that evidence.
So I think a lot of us are aware that sound tends to travel over water.
Right.
Has that been a consideration in the work that you've done in proximity to the lake?
Yeah, so again, we have not released you could do a whole acoustic mapping study. We've done those for other projects, where big, I guess, amphitheater projects, you do that sort of study. Those are extensive and very costly. This was a good faith effort to, at this time, convey what the intention is of those speakers, that they are not there for having, live music and bands and having, something like the Big Chill. They are simply soffit speakers that are at the entrance to create the environment of the diner, and that they are limited to these locations, estimated at these decibel ratings, and then mapped out with this offset.
Estimated at the decibel ratings in accordance with what they
so
are at another location?
So at the other location, these speakers are capped out at 32 decibels.
Okay.
So
that would be the same situation here. Now, David, do you think you can approach and describe to me the character of the land between where these speakers would be located and the lake itself?
That's exactly what I wanted to do, because as you recall, we worked extensively to dedicate the portion of the property adjacent to Draper Lake in a conservation easement. It's a substantial piece of property. So that same property will never be developed because it was transferred into a conservation trust, and that same property would buffer any sound. I mean, Levi's showing in the study where our speaker is up at our entry, the sound will not impact the adjacent properties, and we have all of this vegetation that's now in the conservation trust that we work so hard to preserve with the community, and that same vegetation now is helping barrier, if you will, the sound from ever making it to the water to have the ability to transfer across the water.
Thank you. I thought that was the case. Please continue.
in addition to the lighting study, again, the acoustic study, we did a lighting study. And the first version was, again, sort of qualitative, because we had the engineer drawings that were required that show that there's no foot candles leaving the property boundary per code. But we also wanted to illustrate, that buffer zone, does it hide the lights? The concern was specifically regarding the lights that are located on the fin elements of the diner. So that would be up here, that height would be visible from the adjacent neighborhoods. So our first study on that was to take we developed a lantern, is what I would call it. And it's made with the same flex LED tubing. We're going to be using blue, which does not carry as far at night, but we did this because it would carry the most. It's and it was at the three heights, so at the soffit and then at the parapet height. And then we took a forklift out to the property and elevated it at the height of the parapet and at the height of the fin. And then
based on design grade.
Based on the correct, on the actual elevation post grading and finish floor. And so then we began to look at, this is where it would be, you can't see it at all. This, light over here is the house that's next to it, and the Sunliner Diner is located there. And so there's no light visible at the height elevations. Again, per staff's comments, we were asked to incorporate that into the drawing to make sure that it was clearly evident that that was included and considered in the engineering drawings. And so we've added the parapet lights and the fin elements, and they have no impact to the overall distribution of the to the edge of the property line there. So the last part to answer your question was, where did we observe this from? And so we were looking at the Draper Lake across the water and at the reserve over here, and then we also looked at the neighborhood across the street. And so from all those locations, the buffer does its job. The height of the building is 1 story with that tall, sort of, you want to call it a tower or feature element. but it's a one-story building that's screened by that preservation zone.
It would have been interesting to see something like that done with the sound study, or you would have attempted to capture that. I fully suspect that it would be difficult to, there's so much ambient noise out there,
Correct.
especially during certain times of the year, so it would be hard to capture that, but it would have been interesting to see how that would have worked out. But
You know, and there's live events at the local catch, you know, that have projected music. There's restaurants across the street that have ambient music on their balcony. There's the road traffic. There's, you know, a lot of other volume that happens, you know, throughout the day there. And so to be able to discern, you know, what is diner noise at a low frequency versus that would be interesting.
yeah, I feel like it'd be difficult to really measure. Well, thank you. I appreciate the detail there. I know there are folks in the public. Are you folks done? It is. Again, I know there's a lot of concerned folks in the crowd today. I appreciate you being here. Public input is important to this process. This is currently a minor. I'm going to ask if you have technical questions, comments, and concerns. Please approach the committee now. Good morning.
My name's Jack Slattery. I live in the Pines, Blue Mountain, which is directly across the street.
Will you spell your last name for the clerk, please?
Sure. Slattery.
Thank you.
In 2010, trying to cross the street, I got hit by a car on my bicycle. It wrecked the front wheel of my 1984 Cannondale. I've been around a while. I had to replace the bike. Well, I didn't have to replace the bike. I replaced the wheel, but eventually replaced the bike. But it's become more and more hazardous crossing from the Pines to the bike path every year. I've been here since 2002, and it's just gotten worse and worse. To put all the I mean, I have nothing against them having a restaurant, but the traffic and that curve is treacherous now. I can't imagine what it'll be if you add more traffic to it. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to speak to traffic, right? So, and thank you, sir. I want to put it on the record that a 20,000 square foot retail produces more traffic than a 10,000 square foot restaurant, according to the International Transportation Engineers Guide. Okay? I want that to be understood. Thank you. Who's next? Good morning.
Jim Loznica, Loznicka. I'm Jim Loznicka. I'm here representing the Cowgirl Hospitality Group. We're on 30A. We've been on 30A for 20 years. Our primary business is in Blue Mountain Beach. Today we're here not only as restaurant owners, but also as neighbors. Now we live in Draper Lake. We live in surrounding communities, and we drive this stretch of 30A every day. We know it, we feel it, and we care deeply about what happens to it and what's happening to it right now. We are here because this proposed 10,000 square foot Sunliner Diner is not technically a neighborhood restaurant. It's a major commercial operation that, while it may meet the county code, completely violates the intent and the spirit of the neighborhood commercial zoning, which was meant to support small-scale businesses integrated into walkable communities.
The zoning's small neighborhood, sir, just for the record.
Thank you. Thank you. The project is not small or walkable. This diner would be the size of 4 Cowgirl kitchens lined up, or 2 Stinkies, or 2 Mimos. Now, if you know these restaurants, you know the volume that we're talking about because you've been down there and you've seen it. At Blue Mabel, our 4,200 square foot restaurant, we employed 80 staff members at peak. And while we met the county parking code every night, we still had guests and cars that were on the street. It was unavoidable. They were in the crosswalks and they were in the right of way. It created significant traffic and safety issues that were beyond our control as restaurant owners. For a 10,000 square foot operation, you're realistically looking at a staff of over 150 people based on our own observations of running our restaurants for 20 years. That would put parking, we estimate, at 300 vehicles. We want to know where those cars are going to go because it would need a parking garage, not the parking pad that we've seen presented today. And where's that staff going to come from? That's another concern we have. We had to close Blue Mabel in part because of our staffing shortages here on Long Beach, as we know about right now. A restaurant of this scale will be forced to rely heavily on the J-1 visa workers who end up in unstable or illegal housing and put already more pressure on our limited resources. But staffing is not even the most urgent issue. The real issue, as we've just heard, is safety. We had people biking, walking, and crossing 30A without the protection of the sidewalks or crosswalks. We've already had accidents here on this curve, and we've had at least one, if not several fatalities within the last 5 years between this stretch of Blue Mountain Beach and our curve down near Adagio. Now imagine adding hundreds of more vehicles, vendors, delivery trucks, sightseers, you name it, all trying to access this business that cannot function without vehicular traffic. This is not a business, in our opinion, that draws from foot traffic. It requires vehicles and lots of them. This alone disqualifies them from fitting the neighborhood commercial definition. This isn't about traffic or parking, it's about scale and character, and it's about precedent. And dropping a project of this magnitude on the south side of 38 next to one of our fragile coastal dune lakes is not responsible planning. It's a tipping point. So we ask you and the committee, what kind of place do you want 38 to be in 5 years? Approving a 10,000 square foot restaurant, high volume tourist franchise diner that sets precedent and invites more of the same. And then what happens? Our small locally owned businesses like ours won't be able to survive. We'll be bought out. More chains, more condos, more traffic, less character. Our group, Cowgirl Hospitality, has spent years and a lot of heart investing in our community. We even spent 2 years, I believe with the work of this committee, relocating and restoring one of the historic Seagrove Beach buildings and moved it into Blue Mountain Beach because we believe in preserving what makes this place very special because our community deserves better. So today we're asking you, this committee, to look beyond the technicalities of zoning code and consider the real world impacts of this decision because the responsibility of protecting the future of 30A rests with you guys. Thank you for your time and thanks for listening and thanks for your hard work for the community. Appreciate it. Thank you.
If I could, just remind you to be expeditious in your comments, please. And not just you, just in general. Yeah, that wasn't me picking on you, sir.
First of all, thank you for your service to our community. I'm John Harrison, Harrison. I live on Draper Lake. I'm also representing the Retreat HOA, which is 90 non-rental homes located on 38 bordering Draper Lake. We share the community's objections. We think this project ultimately destroys what makes 30A special to the residents and the tourists. I won't dwell again on the specific reasons why we think this carnival-style diner is out of place on 30A, as we really feel that should be self-evident and has been explained in all the letters you've received. But I would like to address two specific objections. First, on the amplified sound violations. This project proposes continuous amplified music.
Excuse me. Sorry, Mr. Harrison. Harrison?
Harrison.
That's right. You use the term violation. What do you mean there?
Well, thank you for asking. As you know, this development order was carefully negotiated over 2 years with Mr. Smith, and one of the important components of that negotiation development order was a prohibition against amplified sound. I believe it's provision 8 of the development order.
So just to be clear though, there's some more detail to that prohibition that directly relates to stages and amphitheaters, if I'm not mistaken?
There is a prohibition against amplified sound, and it talks about stages and amplifier. They did the goal, and I believe you and Mac were very involved in all this process. The concern by the community at the time was loud music. And at that time, what we envisioned was loud music by amplified sound, with somebody playing live music, such as they do at
An event.
Redfish or
Right.
sometimes at Local Catch.
Right.
I guess we didn't foresee somebody coming in here trying to put amplified sound on for 7 a.m., 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on a continuous loop. But the clear purpose of that prohibition was to limit the sound on in that area and amplified sound.
Right. So, and forgive me if I am remembering this incorrectly, but those conditions were drafted by the community in coordination with the applicant and staff, correct? There was a lot of input there, and I remember them being approved by the main folks that
They were
involved.
approved. I guess we didn't get all the conditions, but I think it's pretty evident of what the intent of that prohibition was. It was amplified sound. If you read it, it's amplified sound. Now, if you want to say it only applies to somebody playing a drum, well, I mean, how much detail are you going to go into a development order?
Well, I think it's important to note that, in order to capture every concern, there was time and effort given during that review process to do so. And in my mind, as the project manager then and as where I'm sitting now, I think that was the opportunity to ensure that those concerns were addressed. And by adding that language of stage, amphitheater, it was speaking directly to live music events, things that are not appropriate at that location. And I'm not arguing, and I'm not trying to detract from your statement and concerns by any means. I just, I want to relay my understanding and my memory of this arduous task at the time. So,
Well, I'm not a professional planner. I don't think the people in the community were professional planners when they negotiated this. But I think the clear intention of that whole conversation and that whole provision was to prevent loud sounds coming from this location. I think that's clear.
Understood. I agree.
And concerning the applicant's noise study, it's my understanding that it was conducted at the Gulf Shore Diner location, which is located directly on Alabama Highway 59. Which is a busy 5-lane highway at a major intersection with a traffic light. I checked the traffic count at that location. It's roughly 48,000 cars a day. And when I say the Gulf Shore Diner is located directly on 59, I mean directly, as it's probably 10 feet off the sidewalk. For comparison purposes, Highway 98, I'm sorry, you had a question?
I just want to make sure I understand that 48,000 number. You're saying that the traffic counts at that intersection
Yes.
are 48,000. All right. And there's probably similar development types to this Sunliner Diner on all the corners of that intersection?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
For comparison purposes, here in Walton County, Highway 98 at the Exxon station at the intersection of 30A has a traffic count of 47,000. So roughly the same. So it's like taking a sound study from the sidewalk on 98 at the Exxon station. Of course, the music's going to be hard to be here very far away. It's going to be drowned out by the traffic. And, it's a much different situation on the Diner's 30A location. We have bike and walking paths, golf cart traffic. I think our speed limit is 25 miles per hour, and we have an echo effect of being on Draper Lake. And I would caution putting too much stock in the applicant's noise and lighting studies, as they're paid by the applicant and they have a specific goal in mind. They may not be impartial. They can manipulate the facts and leave out information to meet their objections while still being technically true. I don't think they're trying to malice or anything, but their job is to get this deal approved. But we shouldn't even be talking about what is and what is not acceptable levels of amplified noise, and who in the world is going to police it. If they accidentally turn it up, we're going to call code on that, and they're going to come out there with a decibel meter. I mean, that's crazy. Because amplified sound, in my opinion, is not allowed by the development order, plain and simple. And we're asking the county to uphold the development order. Second, display car and sign ordinances. I believe it has 4 signs. They have a monument sign, 2 rooftop signs.
I'm gonna, not to be rude by any means, but this development order does not approve the signs that are located on that structure or on that site at all. Right?
Okay.
There's a separate sign permit that must come through, or separate applications that must come through. I'm gonna respectfully ask you to move beyond the signs, because it does not hold merit currently in this discussion.
Very good. And if you buy the argument that the display car is not a sign, which is their argument, and I think that's probably better, simpler, because a display car is on the site plan.
If there is not commercial, any sort of advertising on the car itself, it would be considered a decoration, not a sign.
Okay? And it's a decoration, it's not architectural, it's not landscaping, it's not functional. So what is it? I guess it's a hardscape or a decoration.
It would be something similar to a statue or a water fountain, something like that is how we would treat it.
Okay, very good. And the applicants hired very experienced, very well thought of consultants to get this approved, and they've put that display car on the site plan for you to approve or not approve.
Sure.
And I think it's terribly out of place. I think it's when you have authority to approve it or not to approve it. I think it sets a terrible precedent. And, you know, what are we going to have next? 2 cars, 3 cars, 10 cars? We recommend that display car not be approved.
Understood.
Lastly, not only I live on Draper Lake and represent the retreat community, I'm also a 50% owner of the vacant 2-acre commercial property across the street, which is a very similar commercial parcel. Living in Walton County, my business partner and I would never propose such an incompatible development. And we would be ashamed if it was sold to anybody who would. Given the project's significant and incompatibility with the local community, what we feel is a violation of the development order, the display car decoration. We ask this committee to deny it, or if not, to refer it to the Walton Board of County Commissioners for final decision.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Harrison, you've been part of this process since the very beginning, and I respect your comments. I respect your position. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your service.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, let's hold off on any applause or booing or otherwise. It is messing with our recording. Thank you.
Webster. I live in 144 Seaboard Lane in Blue Water Landing. I wanted to talk about the Walton County Development Code in pertaining to this development. It is a small neighborhood zone, and in the small neighborhood zone, most of those uses are residential, but it does provide for neighborhood commercial uses. In the it says subject to section G, which says that you should submit the detailed plan regarding what you're developing, but it doesn't give much guidance other than just to say it has to be approved. I want to argue that the neighborhood commercial use is under the neighborhood commercial zone restrictions.
It's not.
But it should be, because
it shouldn't be.
At a minimum, what's in the small neighborhood should be protected just as much as the commercial. And so when you look at the commercial, the special development standards on commercial, first of all, it says—
Ma'am, if you're going to start saying that the standards under neighborhood commercial apply to the small neighborhood zoning, I'm going to stop you, because they do not, period.
Well, I would just like to at least read those so that the audience and the committee knows those are violations in that commercial code that should be applicable to small neighborhood because we're smaller, we're more residential, so why wouldn't they apply?
Ma'am, I understand, but the law is clear. We cannot take a separate standard that's associated and developed and codified under a different zoning district and apply it to this zoning district. It's just not legal. We cannot. And I won't entertain that. You don't need to read it. We're all aware, staff's aware, the applicant's aware, the community is aware. I've heard this argument before. I respect the argument,
Well,
but
why
it is
doesn't
not
your code
applicable.
protect small neighborhoods
It
then?
protects it just the way it's written. And all
But
of
it's
those
not-
protections in there are what's allowed and disallowed in that zoning district.
So in commercial neighborhoods, you cannot have the music.
We don't have
In commercial
commercial
neighborhoods, you cannot have a metal structure. In commercial neighborhoods, you cannot have anything that isn't articulated and have a facade that's compatible with the neighborhood.
Ma'am,
So when-
ma'am, please. I understand. I understand the concern. I understand the difference. But we cannot apply those standards in this instance under the small neighborhood zoning. When it was
Okay.
authored, the
So I will go
considerations
back-
there were made and codified.
Okay, I will go back to small neighborhood then.
Thank you.
Mixed-use small neighborhood projects shall submit a detailed plan to demonstrate effective alternatives to buffering and separation of land uses, such as street alignment, design, orientation, screening, building articulation, building heights at the edge of the project. So the building articulation is not compatible with the building articulation in the small neighborhood.
How do you
So
mean? Describe that.
It looks like a spaceship. It's the angles on it and the structure of it is not compatible with what's around it. They were supposed to protect the small neighborhood and be in alignment with it. And you're not protecting the values of our property by putting something that just doesn't belong there. It's the wrong scale. It's the wrong scale. It's the wrong facade. It's going to decrease our property values. The buffering and separation, he talks about the buffering and separation that's in there. There is no buffering or separation between the front facade of that building and the Blue Water Landing residences. They just disregard the Blue Water Landing as if it's not a surrounding neighborhood. It's not part of the diner. It is a surrounding neighborhood. There's no landscape buffer. There should be a fence and a landscape buffer. It's not in compliance in that regard.
I believe there is a landscape buffer, if I'm not mistaken.
Not in front of it. There is on the 30A side,
So-
it's got the landscape buffer, but not in the front.
The way that, and forgive me here, okay, I'm looking at it here. So there's between the access road to the site, there is a row of parking, there is a sidewalk, and then there is a landscape island between the Blue Water Landing development and the parking stalls for this development. So
There's handicap parking in the front, so
yes.
there's pavement, and then there's like, maybe a small planting area between it, but
They
it's
look
not,
to be about 10 or 15 feet wide.
it's not 10 feet. It's not 15, I know that for sure.
So I'm looking, this is a dimension site plan, right?
Yes.
So it's to scale. So I'm looking at a 20-foot long parking stall. I'm looking at the landscape area. It is at least 10 feet wide, if not wider.
The one I looked at didn't say, our CCRs say it should be at least 15 feet and have an 8-foot fence, but they've chosen to ignore our CCRs for Blue Water Landing
I am
residents.
aware of that concern. I am cognizant of it. The planning staff does not enforce CCNRs. I would strongly suggest, for the neighborhood's benefit, if there is a violation there and it can be established, that it would be a civil matter, that the board's attorney would approach the applicant's attorney to discuss how to rectify that discrepancy.
Thank you. I'll leave it at that, but I would strongly suggest that the county change their code to provide for as much protection for small neighborhoods as they do for neighborhoods.
I understand that.
It makes no sense.
I understand. Thank you. Ma'am, I hope that you did not take offense to my sternness and my request to relieve some of those comments. That was not my intent to be rude or offend you. I understand that much of this concern has already been on the record. I want to get through this as expeditiously as we all
No
possibly
offense
can.
taken, but I do think that people should be aware that the neighborhood codes would not allow this to progress.
I understand. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is Randy Rasmussen, Rasmussen, and I live in the Island Parks, which is the neighborhood directly north of where this development is proposed.
Across 30A?
Yes, across 30A. We're on the north side, Blue Water Landing is on the south side. We use the same intersection there. And my wife and I bike, walk, but we use the parking or the pedestrian path on the south side of 30A for that purpose. There's 170 homes in our neighborhood, primarily rentals, large amount of traffic, kids on bikes, kids pulling wagons, beach gear across that intersection. So my wife actually approached the county 2 years ago to inquire about a pedestrian crosswalk in that area. And we were told that it had been looked at before, but that curve was too dangerous to put a pedestrian crosswalk there because approaching traffic could not see it in time. So my question to you would be, if that was too dangerous of an intersection to put a pedestrian crosswalk, how can we approve a business that's going to have hundreds of cars a day added to that intersection? We're going to be leaving that intersection. There's no traffic light. There's going to be cars coming from that south side. They're actually going to be hindered most because the road curves away from that intersection both directions. So I think the county's admitted this is a very dangerous intersection. Can't put a pedestrian crosswalk, so why add additional vehicular traffic?
Okay, so we're talking about apples and oranges here, right? We're talking about the safety of pedestrians versus vehicular access, right? So the idea that we're going to put a crosswalk just on a blind corner is different than adding traffic to an access point on that same corner, right? I understand. I'm not saying that it's not dangerous by any means. I understand.
But I disagree. So a car pulling out of that parking lot is going to also be blind to approaching traffic, especially from the west. That's a very severe corner. So they're not going to have visibility.
What I'm speaking to is the county's idea that it's too dangerous to provide a crosswalk at that location. I understand there's conflict and issues with vehicles leaving and entering the site. I'm just trying to elaborate on the idea that that is a separate issue, that the county's not admitting that something can't be there by saying we can't have a pedestrian crosswalk. There's just two different things going on there. I do appreciate and I understand your concern though. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
My name is Mark Dotson, D-O-T-S-O-N.
Good morning.
Morning. Do any of y'all happen to know in front of the pines and on that curve, are you ever there early in the morning when school buses are being let out? Or when they picked up? Anybody?
I've never been there at that time.
Okay. Well, my 13-year-old grandson lives with us. Probably explains why I look the way I do. He's 5'9", 13, and I've been out there with him waiting for the school bus. After the third time he was almost hit, school bus stopped, lights on, arm out, through subcontractors, tourists that are half asleep, or maybe they just drive like they're half asleep, but going through there. And after the third time he was almost hit, the school bus is honking the horn and stuff. I called the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department informed me that they do not have resources for that, and that they only have one traffic unit, and that has to be okayed by the lieutenant for them to make a presence on 30A while the kids are waiting for these school buses. I'm only saying that because I had all these ideas and things I was going to throw out for long-term vision and all that, but basically the safety for me right now is the biggest problem. If you have a breakfast rush, a lunch rush, a dinner rush, you're causing that problem. If you had like a multi-unit commercial space, I don't think it would create that kind of traffic that this is. And the problem with this particular project is, if it's very successful, you have a heck of a problem with traffic. If it's not successful, you have a chrome-plated monument to bad decision. And I just think with this architectural, the way they're doing this, if it does go out, for someone to come in later and try to retool this to make it another restaurant, it'd be cost prohibitive. So with that, that's all I have.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, I'm just gonna say that traffic concerns, safety concerns, it's all on the record. Further comments, please don't repeat any of that if you can help it. Thank you.
Kevin Ford, FORD. I am a resident of Blue Water Landing, and unfortunately, much of what you need to hear today is you just basically said you don't want to hear it. A county
Not that I don't want to hear it, just that we have heard it, right? There's a difference.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
The county is basically made up of communities. Blue Water Landing has its own rules, which in this case, Sunliner Diner, by purchasing that plot, has agreed to abide by the rules of Blue Water Landing, its CCRs. So, and thus far, Blue Water Landing has not seen adequate evidence that they have made the accommodations to meet the requirements of that commercial lot that are very clearly defined around some of those have been defined around the fence, the 15-foot natural buffers, the noise, lighting. I won't get into them since they're already on record. So, but in this case, for the county to provide approval, I feel like those need to be taken into account. They have to. It's on Sunliner Diner to provide evidence that those are being met to accommodate the rules of.
But not to the county, right? It's if this goes to a court, that is when they would provide evidence that the CCNRs are being met. That is not something that we look at here.
The last thing I'll talk about, and you already said, don't talk about traffic. As a person
Look,
that lives in.
I asked nicely, please. But if you really feel like you need to get something out that supports or otherwise adds to the previous comments, please do so.
One thing that I'll say is much of what I've seen thus far, like when that entrance was designed for Blue Water Landing, was based on 2020, 2021 traffic analysis. A lot has changed since then. E-bikes didn't exist back then, at least not to the degree they do now. I think it is my strong recommendation as a resident of there, someone that goes in and out of that neighborhood every day, I think it warrants a new analysis of pedestrian traffic and traffic around that entrance to see, is this going to cause a hindrance? So that's my recommendation.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
My name's Tess Healy, Healy. I'm here representing Old Florida Beach Homeowners Association. It's 66 lots that has Gulfront access, but also is on the edge of Draper Lake. I just have a few, I think, comments, so I'll keep it short. I think I've put it in my letter to you guys, so you've probably seen all that. But I wonder if by virtue of hearing from the Blue Water Landing people, if we're going to have an HOA, that this Sunliner Diner will be part and parcel of. I hate to see this adversarial relationship start out on this foot, and it seems to me like there could be some time taken for that HOA to address the legal issues that they see with this DO. I'm on the north side of our neighborhood, so I'm not Gulfront. But when Local Catch plays music, I hear their music, and it's very loud. It's not like you can't tell who's singing it and what the song is. So I'm not convinced that any other sound wouldn't travel the way it does from that neighborhood, which has buffer trees and everything else, the way it does at Local Catch today. And then I just wanted to say, the county advertises this area, these beach neighborhoods, as serene and scenic, and SRB in particular as having private island vibes. And I don't see how I think we'll have to change those marketing materials if we allow this type of project to go through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. Y'all have got they've got a tough job, and I certainly appreciate that. My name is Kevin Hale, and last name Hale. It should have been spelled differently, but that's the way the family just chose to spell that. I am speaking as a homeowner in the Blue Water Association. I just want to remind you something, and if y'all could look at that, at the plot on the screen. My wife and I, Leanne, are relatively new homeowners in the Blue Water Association. And our coming and going from the area, the outside of the Blue Water Landing, which would be the egress and ingress of the restaurant as well. That area, you can see that coming with the map showing that you've got from the west, it's a curve. That same curve continues that's not seen in that, meaning that you've got relatively blind areas coming from both directions. And I find myself, the gentleman earlier, I think it was Mr. Ford, mentioned the e-bikes. Oh my goodness. It almost makes you apprehensive to pull out. Is somebody coming? And here's my point. If any of you have ever been in an evening to Mimos, those cars are already lined up along the roadway across the street, which is basically coming in the backyards of the Blue Water Landing on towards the water side of 38. If you follow me on that, here's my point. If you'll look at that map, I think that it's unreasonable. I think it would be an unintended consequence. And I can't prove it. I'm just telling you, I think by past experience, those cars coming to Sunliner Diner are going to continue along that, in front of that diner, whether it's a no parking or not. It's just going to be natural for those cars. It's similar to Mimos down there. If you're coming from the west on 30A, from the Shunt Gully and that area, and you're coming to turn in right, and there are cars there, y'all, there's no cars now. And it makes me, especially at night, looking to see if an e-bike or somebody walking, pushing a stroller, it's very apprehensive. I cannot imagine if I've got a car along that street and I've got to guess who's coming behind that on that bike path before I turn in. We're talking about decibel levels of the Beach Boys. That's going to be nothing compared to the decibel levels of the EMS sirens coming through that neighborhood when people get run over. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I do want to say something respective of those comments, right? And this is, again, going to speak to the idea that any other use there, but in particular, a 20,000 square foot retail use, they're all going to generate traffic. There's always going to be trips generated with any development on that site.
Would it be a fair question or a rebuttal to say that a commercial, whatever, t-shirt shop or whatever, would be open at 10 o'clock at night?
There's no telling what would be or not be open
I
in a
agree with that.
retail
Yeah, it's hard
type
to say.
strip center, right? So
Yes,
the
sir.
idea that a restaurant will have certainly hot times of the day where traffic generation will be increased, that's not falling on deaf ears. I understand that. But a retail shop would certainly generate traffic throughout the day, especially if there's some popular little shops in there.
And I understand that, but I think that we would agree that a shop or a retail would not need the service people as would a restaurant that's already been mentioned. Please do not underestimate
No,
that.
no, I'm not arguing that fact.
All
You're
right,
right.
thank you.
There's,
Thank you,
there's a
Mr.
lot
Chairman.
of service folks that are going to be needed for a 10,000 square foot restaurant.
Yes, sir.
There would be also quite a few folks that would need to be on hand for 20,000 square foot retail, multiple shops as well. So
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you for the time. My name is Mike Mather, M-A-T-H-E-R. I live at 68 Seaboard Lane in the Blue Mountain housing area. I wasn't able to attend the last meeting. There's a couple things that I'd like to bring up that I listened to the tape.
Please.
First of all, they talked about notifications and having the meetings with the residents before back in 24 and 25, beginning of 25. There were no attempts made to notify the members of our neighborhood of those meetings. They could have posted something on our mailbox. They could have sent out a mailer. They could have posted something on our doors. It would have been very easy to do. No attempts were made to notify us of those meetings. And it makes me think that maybe they can mitigate the effects of the light and sound and traffic on the other neighborhoods locally, but they can't on ours. We talk about the light test. They said there was no effect, that they went and they looked in the different neighborhoods and there was no effect of the light from their light test when they put it on the man lift out there. I find it interesting that I saw it from my house, 7 houses down on Seaboard Lane, and walked down there and talked to them about it and discussed the entire light test with them, but they never mentioned that people in our neighborhood see the light. So that, to me, I just feel like they have trouble mitigating the effects on our neighborhood, so they're kind of ignoring our neighborhood itself.
which is your neighborhood, sir?
I'm sorry?
Which is your neighborhood again?
I live in Blue Water.
Oh, just right across the
Yeah,
drive aisle there?
this is part of our HOA development.
Okay, thank you.
You know, we've talked about the traffic and everything ad nauseum. I'm not going to do that, but I will tell you that I did stand out at the intersection, back at the line where you would have to stop a car with a stopwatch at night, where you can see the headlights coming quicker because the lights are on. And it was 4.6 seconds from the time you could spot a car till it was directly in front of you. The entire broadside of the car was in front of you. Very little time to be able to make decisions, especially when you have to look both directions with the traffic and both directions with the path and those e-bikes coming at 25 miles an hour. That's really just what I wanted to say. I really feel that it's, you know, they may be able to mitigate some of the issues for other neighborhoods, but for ours, I don't think they can. I think some other people are going to be talking about traffic and parking and all that. The last thing I'd like to say is nobody has brought up the fact that the common space area behind where the restaurant is where our HOA is looking at putting a pool. So our pool is going to be right behind the restaurant. The smells of trash, the traffic constantly, the light and sound, it will definitely hurt our ability to enjoy our pool area once we put it in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. David, where is the dumpster location? Okay.
We located as far away from that common area.
Okay, thank you.
So it's facing 38. Huh, right. My name is Dahlia Bradley, and I live in Blue Gulf Resort, which is located directly east of Mimo's. Mimo's is walking distance to my house. I have a 9-year-old child. Her best friend lives in the Blue Water Landing community. I'm also a local real estate agent, and I think you guys are, if you approve this, are making a really bad move. I took it upon myself to get my drone operator to come out and show a worst case scenario. This is the gate to Blue Water Landing. I'm going to say, and I don't know because I don't live there, but I'm going to say at least 80% of those homes are short-term rentals, which is not 1 or 2 vehicles.
Hold on. Do we have someone from that neighborhood HOA here? Is that accurate?
Approximately 50/50, full-time resident versus.
Thank you.
I think it's a little more. Anyway, I drove my kid home. I drove my child's best friend home yesterday. I was playing Frogger in the neighborhood. We went out to dinner. When we came home, I was pulling here off 30A, and on this side of the road, which is where you would pull in, there were 8 people, short-term renters, on bicycles in the lane in which I needed to pull in. It was 7 o'clock at night.
Is that when the gate was not operational?
No, the gate is always operational.
I thought it broke down recently.
The gate is here. This is where you pull in. So if you were going to the diner, you would pull there. So let's say that my trek yesterday wasn't taking my kid's best friend home, but I was going to the diner. I would have probably run into those children on bicycles, except I know because I'm in and out of the neighborhood, you have to go with the utmost of slow speed, like 5 miles an hour. Okay, anybody trekking in that restaurant, been to Pigeon Forge, they're, build it and they will come. They're going to come here because they want to see that diner that they've seen in multiple cities. There's going to be death. There's going to, not if, when, and how many. And I think that death toll is going to be on the county. And I mean, really, cue the Morgan commercial, because you guys are being told today that it's not there. Any respectable business would do a traffic study, not only car count, but pedestrian and the foot traffic and the e-bikes and all of those things. I've personally been, not me hit them, but almost hit by bikers pulling out of this neighborhood. Because again, they're in that curve, they get going, they don't see you, and they almost hit you. I mean, there's gonna be death.
I understand.
It's large. In 2019, there was a death right by Mimo's. One of our neighbors was hit in the crosswalk, and it was at night, and we are not in the curve at Mimo's. We have a little bit of a straightaway right there. And we just, if you look at the goat neck here, here's where you have to turn into the restaurant. When you turn into there, there's a gate. With all the renters, you have to stop, which means no one can pull out, because right here is where you have to stop for the gate. So if there's another car behind there, bumper to bumper, the ingress and egress here is not, there's null. There's no ingress, egress. It's being blocked. And that's going to be just, I'd say somebody go over there now that it's season. Let's get over there on a Saturday and check the ingress and egress when it's rental time, check in 3, 4 o'clock, and see what a goat rope it is.
So that image that you're showing the board, are those actual cars there, or was that?
No, these are not actual cars. We did worst case scenario, but this could be on a rental season. I'll tell you, last night when I took
Hold on. So worst case scenario as it relates to automobiles entering an existing development?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, because it's packed full of rentals, and I'm gonna say when I drove through last night, you can tell the rental houses, they have 5 and 6 vehicles each. Many of them also have golf carts, 6 or 8 bicycles. So, instead of doing just a car count, somebody needs to do a pedestrian walking count, and not in off-season, like we're not even at high season. I'd say 4th of July, it needs to be an independent study, not somebody these guys hire, somebody the county hires.
Ma'am, the folks that do these studies, right? They're certified licensed engineers. They have ethical requirements that they have to meet, right? If it's challenged, they have to go in front of their ethics committee and present their case and all those things. So it would behoove an engineer to do these things correctly in line with their standards, right? So I'm not going to sit here and question, or even entertain the idea of requiring some sort of third-party study. That's not going to happen from this board. No, because it's not required. It's just not.
Not required.
It is not. No, they present their studies. Our certified licensed engineers in the department and our contract folks, they review those studies and they say this meets our standard or it does not.
And I want to say something about the light test study.
Okay.
There was no light test study done on the ingress and egress of all the cars big trucks and all of those things that are gonna be going in and out, where I do think the lights will shine over to the Draper Lake. And I don't
From
think.
the automobiles, the headlights.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Which would also be there for any development that goes into that site, correct?
Right, but I don't think, like, a smaller retail shop would probably get more traffic, I'm going to say, from bicycles and walking. We have a large bike walking community there, as it's already been stated. And like, you know, a nail salon, a hair salon, a doctor's office. There are multiple things that wouldn't require 7 a.m. music to 10 p.m. music, that would more likely be 9 to 5 or 9 to 7, that would behoove the neighborhood folks like myself to walk and have a service fulfilled and not get in my vehicle. I just think it's a bad idea, because it's one of those things that's a destination for the folks that have gone to the other two locations. And we don't need folks driving in from Destin and Panama City Beach like a Margaritaville. People will go to Margaritaville in Pier Park just because it's Margaritaville, and they'll drive miles to do it. We don't need it. We don't have the infrastructure to support that.
Ma'am, every day, people from all the surrounding counties and states, for that matter, are on 30A. This isn't, in my opinion, going to change that pattern of our traffic situation.
I believe you are incorrect there. And I'll just say this. We've owned our house since 1980. So I've been here when Scenic 30A was just a highway and not a destination.
But it is now, though, ma'am. It is a destination.
I understand that, but
Right.
we don't need to add fuel to the fire.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just to my point, whatever goes in there is going to create the same ills that many of you have described already. Look, this isn't, I'm not, okay, just allow me to talk here, please. Any development is going to generate traffic. That traffic is going to cause problems at that existing entrance. Regardless of the use, those vehicles are going to shine the same lights across that lake or into the trees and into the buffer, right? Those are the things I'm talking about. There's that situation, the character of the concerns there are not going to change with any other use that's provided there. It's all going to, there's always going to be additional traffic with any use. There's always going to be light pollution with any use. I understand that, okay? This is all on the record. This is all part of what is happening here. We've all reviewed it. We all understand the concerns. Thank you for coming up and sharing your thoughts. Thank you. Hi.
I'm Lee Moore, M-O-O-R-E, and I'm representing Scenic Walton today. Our board is very concerned about this development, as I'm very concerned. Look, there are a lot of technical aspects that have been talked about today. What I'm asking is that you pull out and back from that and look at this from a bigger picture perspective. I think, and it's come up over and over, I think that fit and compatibility are the issue. And that would be very different from something else that could go in there.
That I do agree with you on that.
Yes. So that's what I think
That is
it really
different.
boils.
That is different
yes,
than traffic
I agree.
and lighting
I
and
agree.
all those other things. Okay.
I agree. So when you look at the other Sunliner Diner locations, they are in a drastically different environment, drastically different. And they're trying to put that here in a totally different environment. I don't know what the other word I'm looking for is, but you get the idea. With making very little changes really to the concept. Appreciate the color changes. That was a suggestion at a community meeting. I think it made a difference, but there are so many other issues here. And I'm going to just get a little bit, I'm not trying to be dramatic. This is factual. We are losing the character of 30A. It is a gym. That is why people are desperate to be there. And for a lot of different reasons, and it's been coming on for years. it's death by 1,000 cuts if we're not careful here. And there's a tipping point, and I just feel in my gut that this might be it, because of what I just said. And they're putting a concept into a place that it doesn't belong. And I would say too, from a on the more technical side, this would be, from my understanding, the largest restaurant by far on 30A. So I would say that there are enough fit and compatibility issues here that it rises to a major development order status and needs to be reviewed further. No offense to you guys. You all have a very important purpose that you serve, and you do it well. But there's so much going on that I'm telling you, I'm sitting in the back of the room listening to this. I sat in every community meeting. I sat in the first public workshop or the first TRC meeting. There are red lights and sirens about this development blaring. Please don't ignore it because you feel like it might technically meet the land development code requirements. There is more to it than that. And in my work on the design review board, when I was on it, there were plenty of times where we had to step back and say, but does it work with the intent of the code, right? And there is some gray area there. We cannot help it. Developers don't want there to be, and I understand that from their perspective, but there is. And we worked with those applicants, and most of the time we got it right, I feel like, and I feel like most of the time they felt like we got it right. But I will tell you that over the years, there were some times where we did something and we looked back and said, God, when it went in the ground, it was like, oh, we shouldn't have done that. So I have that perspective as well, and I can see it from your eyes sitting up there. I know it's challenging, but I do think that at least it warrants going through more process, Planning Commission, the Board of County Commissioners, because it is so different from anything out there. It is so much larger, and I keep, so that would be a suggestion from me strongly. And I keep thinking back from the developer's perspective of trying to put this somewhere that's so drastically different from where their other locations are. That is important. It means a lot. And they might put it there and still make money, but that's not the only issue with development. There are plenty more issues as to whether something can be put in and be profitable. So I just think that those kinds of issues, like fit, like community harmony and synergy with what's around it, are very, very important. They're just as important as if it meets every letter of the specific land development code section that applies to it. So I think you've got an opportunity to put this through more rigorous review, and you're getting good feedback. I don't hear people out here just pitchforks and torches saying, I think this is ugly and I don't want it, or anything like that. They're bringing up very valid points. You've got people from the restaurant industry weighing in that really know what they're talking about on those specific issues. And I just feel like there's a real opportunity here to do the right thing, or it could go the other way, and 5 years down the road, there are going to be a lot of regrets. And I would say there might even be regrets on the part of the developer. Somebody said it earlier, it's my last comment. It would be a shame to bring this thing out of the ground with all this conflict with the community around it. And I agree, and I will tell you, I used to own a lot right down the street from this, and I was building on it, and I no longer own it. I cannot tell you, I'm sitting back there so thankful that I sold that. And that is sad, because I will tell you, I was thrilled to be building a house near 30A. It was right close to it. And in that area of that gorgeous area and that gorgeous neighborhood and that beautiful scenic highway, now I am so happy that I do not own there anymore and will not live there. That is sad. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Tell you what, I'm going to call for about a 5-minute break. When we return, I'm going to accept about 3 more comments. I'd like the folks in the audience that would like to continue to speak to potentially gather find out who's going to present your arguments or your comments, and then do so upon that return. I appreciate your cooperation. Yeah, I was about there. All right. Thank you. Welcome back. The next public comment, please.
Howdy, folks.
Good morning.
My name is Sean O'Neill, O-N-E-A-L, and I live in the retreat. Driveway's right across from Mimo's, which I love. Great menu. Just thought I'd bring up a few things that I haven't heard mentioned here. One is I like the idea that there's 20,000 square feet approved. The request is to use half of that. And I think that's a positive. Now, a lot of subjectiveness to what type of restaurant somebody might want. And traffic is, a way of life. On 30A, I've been there over 20 years. I've seen, a lot of development. But one thing about traffic, just a different point of view, being in my neighborhood, I really appreciate the fact that I can now go to many restaurants without a lot of travel and a lot of traffic, because I can go to Basmati down the street, I can go to Mimo's right up my gate, I could go to this place or a similar restaurant, I can go to McTie's at Blue Mountain, I can go to Cowgirl Kitchen, which I love too, and that actually, I'm putting less miles out there. I'm not contributing as much traffic as when I used to in the old days have to go down much further to get that kind of variety. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, I feel like there's a little bit of a NIMBY effect, not in my backyard. We all love the fact that we have 260 restaurants or whatever it is now on 30A, but just about everything on 30A is surrounded by a neighborhood. I mean, there's neighborhoods behind Local Catch, all around Shunk Gully, all around Stinky's, the whole thing. And so, nobody looked at the menu. The menu looks good. It looks like there's something for everybody, and the demographic fits the southern, southeast, southwest type of clientele that we get here as tourists. I know the grandkids will love it. I could love some other type of restaurant too, but I mean, the point is, a lot of this is a little behind the 8 ball, I think, because this was approved a long time ago. Time, perhaps, for a lot of the comments and input would have been when 20,000 square feet were approved for that development. So, again, I'm just trying to find some positive things to say. Something's going to go there. No one has gotten up and said, we just can't have anything there. We've got to stop. That would be a much higher authority that's going to decide that we can't do any other development on 30th. That's way beyond what we're talking about. As long as we're doing business as usual, I just hope we get, you people are in charge to decide to get a good match and to make them follow the guidelines. And I'll just give one example. Years and years and years ago in Seaside, little cottages, how the little cottage picket fences, they had a code. They thought they had a very airtight, good code. An architect came in, took that exact same code, and on that street built something entirely modern. Didn't look like anything else in Seaside, but it met their code. So there's that too. And that's it. You got a tough job, and I trust you to do it, whether it's this one or something else. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too, sir.
I'm Brad Webster, W-E-B-S-T-E-R, and I'm a full-time resident of Blue Water Landing. I just want to kind of go back over a few points that were made earlier. One, when you talked about item 3, David got up and talked about an access road, temporary road gonna be done that would make it easier for the residents to access their area. Item 6, Inlet Beach Circle K, additional traffic studies needed. Item 7, Satinwood, additional sidewalks for pedestrian traffic and access road. There's a lot of access issues going on here, none of which I think is going to, well, this particular development is going to be extremely burdensome to those of us that live in Blue Water Landing. The access road that we're talking about here, coming off of 30A, is Jetty Road right here. Jetty Road from 30A to the access for this restaurant is 75 yards or less. So they're gonna have to come in and go out. You're gonna have 18-wheeler supply trucks coming in there. The traffic's gonna be backing up here. We keep hearing all this traffic. But I just wanna make sure it's in perspective that this access road is extremely short. We already get backed up with traffic coming in and out of there with the residents and the renters and everything else. The other thing I wanna make sure everybody understands is the county required us to put the gate coming into our subdivision right here rather than out here because they didn't want to back up traffic on 30A. So our keypad and entry for RFID reader for the cars is over on the left side. Every vehicle that comes in that subdivision has to get in the opposite lane to either punch in the key code or the RFID tag to read. So if somebody's coming out here, traffic's going to be blocked coming out of this restaurant and go down there for people going in and out. That's going to be an issue. So everything just kind of keeps compounding itself in this short little distance. And I just want to make sure we all understand this. The other thing I want to talk about is this restaurant, as it's proposed, is already at an elevated position of 3 to 4 feet above grade from where the home's set. So they talk about the lighting, they talk about the sound, we've talked about landscape buffers, we've talked about a fence that needs to be in place. It's already 3 or 4 feet above the road and above these residents. This is the first home right there, within 75 feet of the resident, or the restaurant. This is a home here. Our mailbox are back in here. Again, access, lights, sound, everything's going to be coming right at the homes that are within 75 feet of this facility. That's a problem for us. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is, and I've heard it at the first technical review meeting, and I heard it again today, that they've reached out multiple times to the community. They have never reached out to the residents of Blue Water Landing. We've heard that they could have done it with certified mail, they could have a note on our door, they could have done anything. They've never reached out to us to talk about it, and they're part of the Blue Water Landing HOA. We have the 4th Amendment to our covenants, code, and restrictions that sits on top of what they do. And there's some guidelines that they have to follow for being part of the HOA. I personally have emailed that amendment to these 2 gentlemen and the developer myself, and I have never got acknowledged receipt. They've never picked up a phone and called me or anybody else in the subdivision. It's just like we don't exist. And we have a problem with that. All I want to leave you with.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Barbara Morano, and I'll be the last speaker. And I am concerned with the burden that has been placed on me from the very beginning. From the very beginning, I was part of this in 2020 and took a very strong role. And David was correct. We agreed on a number of things at that time. We agreed on 31 homes. We were thrilled. We agreed on conservation in the back. We were thrilled. We really did agree on no amplified sound, and I can go into the history later on that. The commercial parcel was honestly not as big as the 31 homes, but the commercial parcel was part of it, and it was a shopping center. When I got a call a few months ago from David, he said, Barbara, I got this project, but I don't want to take it until we get a neighborhood involvement. That's credit to David. I did the best I could to pull in as many as I can, but I did not realize Blue Water Landing and this parcel and this applicant were part of an HOA. That responsibility definitely falls on the applicant. When I did find out about Blue Water Landing, we did our best to get in touch with them. And they are gated, but I didn't realize there was a side gate, and I did knock on a few doors, 2 doors. But I did pull in the community. And for the record, I want to share the communities, the board of directors, who are behind saying that we do not want this, or at least a major development. We'll start with Old Florida Beach, going around the lake, Draper Lake Coastal Village, Crescent K, the Retreat, and Blue Water Landing. Then we cross over 30A, and we're going to have Highland Park, Fontana Dunes, and the Pines. All of those communities, except the Pines, they are not an official HOA, but all of those board of directors are concerned about this project. We also had a petition. I was told you can only count that as one person, but there were over 1,000 signatures of people in that community that were concerned about this.
We can only count that as one comment.
Yes,
not-
okay.
Right, just
Thank you. But there were 1,000.
understood.
So here we are, and in my opinion, and in the opinion of, and Lee spoke extremely well, this is a monumental change from what the parcel of a 20,000 shopping center is. And let's look, is it pulled up on the Gulf Shores? Okay. Gulf Shores. All right, what you see on your screen is Gulf Shores. This is where they did their, it's all pulled up.
Barbara, is that the same picture that they're trying to pull up that you have in your hand?
I know, as a former teacher, I know these things happen, so I went to, and I got this blown up. But for the rest of the people, and for you, you need to see what Gulf Shores looks like. Here's the Sunliner Diner. And of course, they did their acoustic study there, and you were absolutely right to talk about the traffic. And if they really were concerned about the acoustics, they would just pull that speaker out and let it be. They're going to get people there, but that's another story. You can see around the Sunliner Diner, you've got Souvenir City, Sunliner Diner, you've got a nature park, you've got Chico's Pizza. I mean, this is a restaurant set in a totally commercial area. Absolutely total. No neighborhood around it. They still don't have it pulled up?
No, it's up.
All right. So for the audience, they can see Gulf Shores Jerky Store. They could see Deli's Ice Cream. And look where the Sunliner Diner is. Not one, and Brad Webster and the people from Blue Water Landing, they're basically where that ice cream store is. This restaurant is a square peg, huge square peg, trying to go into a tiny circle on 30A. And I'm going to talk about small neighborhood. I know we talked about it before, but the code, it doesn't fit the code. No matter what you heard today, it doesn't fit the code of small neighborhood. This is not only black and white, it's in color to show you what Sunliner Diner looks like on Gulf Shores. Let's look at Pigeon Forge. Look at that highway next to Sunliner. And all these, I think there's a Hollywood Wax Museum, Real Buds Dispensary. What is that? Marijuana store. Shiloh Memorial Cemetery. That's what goes around this Sunliner Diner. And where are the nearest homes? There are none. And again, remember that picture that Brad Webster showed you? 150 feet are his homes. His homes that they spent $1.5 million per home, expecting to be on 30A with a small shopping center, small-scale health, small-scale grocery, and probably a restaurant, and that's okay, a small-scale restaurant. But now they're facing being in Pigeon Forge or Gulf Shores. For the people on the committee who do not have the planning experience, I want to pass out, if I may, Stephen. This is the code. Now, I highlighted the code for your benefit and for mine. And Mrs. Webster tried to explain it as well, and she did, that it's a small neighborhood. And what I highlighted is it encourages economic diversity and sustainability within the area. That shopping center would give you more economic diversity and sustainability than one large 10,000 square foot single-use restaurant, the largest restaurant on 30A, and I can venture to say the largest restaurant in Walton County. The largest restaurant in Walton County to sit over 200 plus people. The next one I highlighted was promote the future viability of the neighborhood. You've heard from the residents of Blue Water Landing. There's no future viability for them. Look at all that traffic that's coming in on that private road. And I'll go over a little bit of DRBM study in a minute. Stephen, I know you didn't want to touch traffic too much, but I have some information I wanted to add on that. So the future viability of that neighborhood is dead in the water, as far as I'm concerned. Now, this is more important. Encourage a walking and bicycle-friendly design. I showed you pictures of Pigeon Forge and Gulf Shores. They were not walking or bicycle-friendly, and this particular Sunliner will not be walking and bicycle-friendly. It's going to pull from all over because it's a tourist attraction. It's an event center. The waitresses will be wearing the same color red lipstick, uniforms, 50s music, and as the applicant said on the first meeting, we're going to bring Las Vegas to 30A. Those were his words. And at the first meeting, we also said it doesn't fit in. But we couldn't use the words, we didn't understand small neighborhood until I did more research. It doesn't fit in. And yes, you can have a neighborhood use, but let's look at G, you can turn the page. G2. Small neighborhood project shall be pedestrian in scale. This building is not pedestrian in scale and shall facilitate and encourage pedestrian use. We've already talked about the 70 plus, and the applicant's thrilled. We met the code, they said. Well, we know the parking will be all along 30A. The county is allowing parking in the right-of-way unless there are no parking signs. And as far as the parking on the road going into Blue Water Landing, that will be full of cars, not the cars for Blue Water Landing. And the answer I got, well, I guess you can just talk to the sheriff about that. We don't want problems after this supposedly is approved. That's why it is major. This is a monumental change, and I have some information about why I think it's monumental from the PUD originally when it was approved. Now, it also says the placement of residential and commercial land uses shall be such that pedestrian rather than vehicular access to commercial uses is facilitated and encouraged. There's not going to be any pedestrian usage as much as vehicular access. For the largest restaurant on 30A is not going to be pedestrian friendly. And people want to go there. They want that unique experience, and it will be. But it's not small neighborhood. Again, what we agreed to, and David said I stood up and agreed to it 4 years ago, was a shopping center, a small scale use. That's what people in Blue Water, they have property rights. Their property rights, and they're in an HOA. The applicant didn't even reach out to tell them what was happening. That is beyond my mind to understand that. I want to talk about the actual traffic study that you mentioned, Stephen. It was by DMP. Well, let me go back. Dewberry in 2021 talked about the 31 single-family lots and the 20,000 square foot shopping center. And that Dewberry report was part of the staff report. And the staff report, of course, as we talked about, is part of the original Blue Water Landing final development order. Stephen, do you want me to show you what I'm talking about? Okay.
It's fine, I know.
Okay. So Dewberry at the time said the concurrency, the proportional fair share was $732,582 that they had to pay because they knew they were impacting 30A and 393. But where does that money go? It doesn't stay on 30A because those roads are constricted. So we knew 4 or 5 years ago that this development was going to impact 30A. But as you mentioned, we didn't even get a crosswalk or didn't even get a sidewalk. Now, as far as what DMP did, they used some kind of proportion, but they called it a fast casual restaurant. They used that in their study. This is not a fast casual restaurant. This is an event. This is a place people want to go, and they're going to sit there for at least an hour. And there's going to be a lot of traffic, I think they were saying. And then they also called a retail plaza. And you're right, Stephen, they said one is equal to the other. But we're forgetting in a retail plaza, it's not going to be from 7 to 10. And of course, they're not going to play music and lights, et cetera. That's going to draw people to the parking lot. Now, I know this isn't a factor and it's not technical, but it's going to be reality. People are wanting to go to this largest restaurant in Walton County. You'll pull from Bay, Okaloosa, you'll pull from North Walton. And there'll be events in that parking lot, whether man-made or applicant-made. We think we worry about spring break, fall break. Seaside has a curfew already right now as I'm standing here, 7 p.m. Where are their kids going to go? Well, they'll go to the Sunliner and have a milkshake. And they'll stand there and they'll sit. And I mean, this is what's going to happen. You're not going to have that in the shopping center. This is a monumental change. I mentioned that. And Stephen, I know we talked about this, but it's a PUD and it's a major change. And I'm going to read it. Any modification of the conditions of approval that results in a significant impact on the surrounding properties. So in other words, 4 years ago, we all thought of a 20,000 shopping center. Now, this might be half, 10,000 square feet, but it's the largest restaurant. That is going to have a significant impact on the surrounding areas, significant. So this is a deviation from the PUD, which would give another opportunity to be heard as a major development.
Barbara,
okay, I can stop. Thank you. You let me talk.
It's, and you can continue, but I want to be clear that this is not a deviation from the PUD. It's not being considered a substantial deviation from the existing PUD.
Even though there's a modification?
Right, because the the character of the change, there's some thresholds in there, and the fact that we went from a 20,000 square foot retail to a 10,000 square foot restaurant does not cross any of those thresholds to bump it up to a major. I understand the idea that the impact may be different, right, and perceived as more intense. But the fact of the matter is, it's not being demonstrated in line with the code requirements for a substantial deviation. I don't disagree with the argument, but I will say that it is not a substantial deviation.
Okay, but it is a PUD, right? I mean, we agreed.
It is
it's a
part
plan
of
unit.
the existing PUD. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, in conclusion, this, if it's approved tonight, it will affect an unbelievable amount of people, area, and again, it's a huge square peg going into a small hole. This is supposed to be a small neighborhood with shopping, medical, florist. They're looking for that economic diversity in a shopping center. No one is denying that. And that's what I meant by a change, because the shopping center changed to I know you disagree, changing to this restaurant.
Well, I just want to explain, because you did make a point to call out the fact that a 20,000 square foot retail center was used in the traffic study initially. What that was looking at, I'm assuming, is the most intense use allowed under the zoning for the traffic study creation, right? So
These are talking about 2020, the traffic study in 2020?
I'm talking about the initial study for the PUD.
Right.
I'm assuming that's what you
4
were
years ago.
considering. Right.
Right.
So as part of that traffic study at the time, they used the most intense use in their mind, and based on ITE figures,
right,
to put that in there as part of the study, right? So that doesn't solidify or memorialize a use just because it's mentioned as a component of the right in this traffic study. That's not that. So the deviation use speaks to those conditions of approval and those other thresholds. So I just want to be clear that none of that compounds to a substantial deviation. But I understand the argument. I certainly do.
But we can agree that this is the largest restaurant on 30A.
I am not disputing that. I don't know for sure. I haven't seen the figures, but I assume it's if it's not the largest, it's certainly up there. Yeah.
And I would venture to say it might be the largest. And when you put, again, when you put a large restaurant in a small neighborhood, logically, it does not meet the code.
Understood.
And from that, I ask that, of course, it should be denied, but if it can't be denied, to move it to a major.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
David, if you would, you got about 12 minutes, because I'm going to call this meeting at 11:30. And I'm still going to ask for about 2 minutes to speak on this afterward.
Will you let me know when you're about to shut me down, please?
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to begin by thanking everyone, because over the last 5 years, I've gotten to know most of the people in the audience. And, we've worked through this. And the people who live in Blue Water Landing, if you were not part of those meetings, and I mean this respectfully, you have no idea what everyone went through in those meetings so you could live in that beautiful neighborhood. Today, I mean that respectfully. I mean that we had so many meetings with staff, many of the members of the audience, which I thank them. And it was a difficult time. And I want to point out, I live here too. I've lived here a long time. And I want to encourage everyone, like I have, and maybe I know Miss Moore has as well, over the last 20 or 25 years, how often have you participated in your workshops with the county about what the county's vision for our county is? The county does have workshops. They have future land use maps, which are the vision. That's what develops the rules and the regulations which are in place today, which we all know we clearly meet all the rules and regulations for County Road 30A and all the requirements of the Blue Water Landing Development Order. I want to touch on a few of the comments made, and then I'll conclude. Several of the speakers spoke about the dangerous curve. I want to make a comment. The reason the curve is there is because of Draper Lake. Right. You know, we live in a beautiful area. I love where we live. And it's a pristine ecosystem where we have the rare dune lakes, which is a brackish environment. It's very rare in the world. There's only 4 of the locations in the world. The road was designed to go around the lake. It is a dangerous curve, but it's a result of preserving the lake, which is the most important thing in all of our minds in this room. So, and I've said this in the past, and I'll use Miss Barber's neighborhood as an example. I was at Planning Commission when Draper Lake went before the Planning Commission where the developer was there. The same concerns, and they're valid concerns, about safety, preservation, were expressed at that time. Highland Parks, Ventina Dunes. It's like, because I go to the meetings, that's my job, but they're valid comments, but they've all been expressed on the developments that are there today, which are beautiful neighborhoods. I'm not saying they're not valid, because they're very valid. But the curve is there because of the lake. And we did communicate with Public Works to see if we could have a crosswalk. We were told no, because it's a safety concern, and the crosswalk could go further south or around the curve to the north. The gentleman in the restaurant, Mr. Loznica, I'm not sure how they run their facility, but we exceed our parking requirement. We do have pedestrian interconnectivity to the Walton County Bike Path. We have pedestrian interconnectivity to the paths that are within Blue Water Landing. We will not be parking out of the right-of-way. We can't park in the right-of-way. That's a violation. And we do exceed our parking requirements. I can't speak to the visas and the workers, and I mean, to me, I know that's not even part of this review or the code. So Mr. Harrison, who I've gotten to know very well throughout this, and I have a lot of respect for Mr. Harrison. I know he made a comment about it's our job to get this approved and leaving out facts. We didn't leave out facts. We're actually very thorough. And most of the people I've coordinated directly in this room know how thorough we are. And you could debate it too. You know, if it's our job to get it approved, it's his job not to get it approved. So if we're leaving out facts, he's, equally leaving out facts, and I don't want to do that. We are presenting our studies, to meet all the rules and regulations, and we're being consistent in what we do. But the lady who spoke about no buffering between the commercial and Blue Water Landing, on the recorded plat for Blue Water Landing, there's a recorded 10-foot landscape buffer. You're exactly right in your comment. It's there, it was part of the review, and it's recorded on the plat for a 10-foot landscape buffer. More comments about the crosswalk. School bus safety, which is a valid point in the curve, but I spoke about why the curve is there. We can't change that today. Ms. Healy spoke about adversarial relationship. We do not want to be adversarial. I mean, that's why I reached out before we did we hadn't even done our construction drawings. I reached out to Ms. Barbara, which I want to make a point there, is throughout all of our meetings for Blue Water Landing, Ms. Barbara will agree, she was my contact. I would communicate with Ms. Barbara, and she would orchestrate the meetings with all of the neighborhoods because she knew all the participants. Ms. Barbara, I did the same thing this time. I reached out to her, and she agreed to facilitate the meetings with all the neighborhoods. So all of my interaction and dialogue was with Ms. Barbara, which is why she also said she tried to go in Blue Water Landing because she knew that was her responsibility to orchestrate the meetings. I apologize if Blue Water Landing wasn't invited, but I did my same dialogue.
We're not going to talk from the audience. Thank you.
I'm just speaking to what I did. I'm being honest too. And I'm speaking to what I did, and it's exactly what we did last time. And she tried to go in the neighborhood. I don't know how far she went. I think she said she went to 2 houses and knocked on a few doors. As far as the gentleman who spoke in Blue Water Landing about us buffering any lights within the exact same development that we're a part of, it's like asking your neighbor to buffer their lights from their house. I mean, there's no way. I mean, you will be able to see the restaurant because it's within the same neighborhood, which is an approved mixed-use development. So we will be able to see their houses. They will be able to see our building. The lighting study was for the residents across the Dune Lake, and that's why we did the study. I am not saying that you will not be able to see this light from residents who live within Blue Water Landing, nor do I believe that that's realistic or feasible in any development.
Sure.
I mean, you're going to see your neighbor's lights.
David,
Yes.
about a minute.
Okay.
Thank you.
The, speaking about the parking within Blue Water Landing for the short-term rentals, because I was the engineer for that project, it's approved with a parking requirement. So if you're having 5, 6, 7, 8 cars per building, you have a code violation with Walton County, which I would encourage you, if that's happening, that you may want to remedy that because it was not designed for the number of cars that we spoke about for the short-term rentals. There's a requirement for each of those homes with those short-term rentals. As far as fitting in with the character as Lee Moore, I mean, I thought she did a good job in her presentation, but we put a lot of time and effort in this small neighborhood community back when you were very much a part of this, when we designed the 31 homes with the commercial that was part of the approvals, that was supported by Ms. Barbara and John Harrison at the Board of County Commissioner meeting. And we worked hard on the small neighborhood project. We all knew it was a 20,000 square foot shopping center, which you made a good point. 20,000 square foot shopping center generates by far more traffic than a 10,000 square foot restaurant. So the fee that was paid by the developer is actually more than what this restaurant's generating. So they've overpaid in their proportionate fair share, which the county can then use in other projects.
You're not getting a refund.
We're not asking for a refund. I just want to make a point. I am not asking for a refund.
I was just joking.
But that's the reality of the situation, is our intensity and our impacts are less than what we all work so hard on, including many members of this audience.
Yep.
Last one, and I will wrap up, Stephen.
Thank you.
Gentleman spoke about, even used the previous project I represented, that we talked about traffic, fire, life safety, and even mentioned some of the other projects on the agenda. I agree 100% with him. That's why this project was on an agenda 4 or 5 years ago, because we went through all those items at that time. We went through the traffic studies. We went through all of those same things we spoke about on other projects other than Blue Water Landing prior to this, and that's the reason for this process. So, in summary, I understand these projects are very emotional because we go through it too. You go through it. And I respect their comments, but we all work so hard to get here, and I'm going to end with this. The reason we're here is because of all the work that many of the people in this room put in 4 and 5 years ago to make this commercial 1.8 acres, 20,000 square feet. And you remember it, follow the code. And Ms. Barbara said, we're excited we follow the code. We are. So to ask you to deny this project based on something that's not within the rules, regulations, or purview, to me, is not fair to ask you to do. We followed the rules. We're here because we followed the rules 4 years ago. That's why we have the size parcel. That's why we have the size up to 20,000 square feet, which the gentleman, Mr. O'Neill, spoke that we're half as a positive, and he's exactly right. We're here as a result of that hard work that everyone in this room put in, and that's why we're here, and I'll conclude with that.
All right, thank you. Please.
This is my very first meeting that I've ever been in Walton County. Is it standard protocol to let the applicant start a meeting and then come back and take their notes and rebut every single
Yes,
thing that
it
they
is.
disagree with? That is standard protocol?
Yes, sir.
In this meeting?
It is.
I would suggest that y'all possibly look at that differently. That just seems to be terribly slanted, that they get to rebut everything.
Well, please understand, right? This is directly related to the development of a property that is owned by that particular individual who has employed this engineer of record and architect and whoever else, right? So deference needs to be paid to that owner. We have certainly taken all the comments and everything else into consideration, but they have to have the opportunity to address those comments made.
Very good. I just will leave you with a comment in opposition that they did not notify me as a homeowner about any.
I understand.
All right.
And
Thank
I'm
you,
going to
sir.
speak to that because there was a number of other comments made, and if I can just finish my thought, because anyways, none of the meetings held, nothing that they've done up to this point other than the technical review committee meeting has been required. It is done to get out into the community, to approach you all, to show a good faith effort to do what's right in keeping with the history of this development. I appreciate the applicant's efforts, and I appreciate all of you for coming in here today and your continued care for the county and for the 38 scenic corridor, excuse me. What is it?
10 seconds.
Please.
I failed to mention Shunt Gully, 400 seats. Old Florida Fish House has more than 500 seats. We have 275 seats with no outdoor seating.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna hurry this up. I've thought about this about 2 days now, and lost some sleep about it. Don't worry, Bob, I'm not gonna start crying. Look, this development meets the code. It meets the land development code. I'd see folks shaking your head, and I understand. With the exception of what I consider to be a bit of a gray area as it relates to the special development standards under small neighborhood. I have a question about the scale and the character of this development as it relates to the existing built environment. It is part of a PUD, there's no doubt about it. And we went through countless hours of public meetings, of non-public meetings, trying to get to a place where the community and the owner was comfortable with moving forward. We found that place. And it is a 1.88 acre piece of commercial property that was conditioned with special considerations on the development that is currently being proposed. I believe they meet those conditions. And as it relates to the development order that was issued, and again, to the land development code. But because I have some concerns about the scale and the character of this development, I am going to make this a major development. I'm going to ask that it goes through the future and further review through the Planning Commission and what will be the quasi-judicial special magistrate hearing that is being currently put together and set up by the Board of County Commissioners. They will have an opportunity to review it on their consent agenda, but they will not be reviewing it in a quasi-judicial hearing. So understand that. I do appreciate all the work you've done, David, and I'm sure this is disappointing to hear, but that's the decision I have made, and that's the request I'm going to make of this committee for a motion to that effect.
Can I ask the base? Well, first of all, I know you're recently named interim director.
That's right.
So as you know, you just made, I think this is your first director's determination.
It is.
So what is the basis for your determination to elevate this to a major?
There are a couple things. First and foremost, it is the question that I have about the scale that is in black and white in subsection G2 of the small neighborhood zoning language. I think there's a question there. I certainly do. Have that question of what's really appropriate to be put on that site as it relates to that sort of requirement or standard.
But
Secondly,
could you argue though, or I can argue that the scale was discussed 4 years ago when it was approved at 20,000 square feet for a shopping center?
Yeah, you can argue that.
Clearly allows a restaurant in a shopping center.
Absolutely, you can
So
certainly
the
make that
scale,
argument.
Which you were the planner.
Yep.
Was discussed and approved 4 years ago for the approval by the Board of County Commissioners for what we have today.
Yes, sir. Yep. There was work done. There was consideration made at that time.
So then the basis of your determination would be a concern with a scale that was reviewed and approved by the Board of County Commissioners 4 years ago.
Look, I think there's a difference a distinction that needs to be made between the size of that commercial use and what was a part of that review and what's being proposed now. And I'm making that distinction. And I have a question about it. And you can feel how you want about it. And you can call this, one of those taco moments, right? That's inundated on all our social media pages. But I don't want to make this decision. And it's simply because of that question of scale and character. And to be honest, the fact that we have hundreds of pages of public comment, folks that are going to have to deal with this development on a daily basis, and it may meet the standard of this code, but I have serious concerns about that access. I really do. It's gonna take a mishap with that gate, and folks are gonna be backed up there. It's gonna take 5 parties coming at one time to short-term rent their folks, and the first one can't get into the gate. And it's gonna be rush hour, and it's gonna block 30A up. In my opinion, I could be wrong, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I do have that concern, right? So those are the things that I'm worried about. Those are the reasons why I don't wanna make this decision, and that's why I'm gonna ask this committee to make that motion.
I understand.
Thank you.
And so in the Walton County Land Development Code, section 11311, where it talks about the developer's discretion to elevate projects to major developments.
Sure.
I don't read the reasoning you just explained in what you can do. I mean, it's outside of what the director's allowed to review based upon to elevate a project to a major.
Okay.
I mean, that's your code.
Sure. So I'm making an administrative decision.
Okay.
It can be appealed to the Zoning Board of Adjustments.
Right. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah. If you don't agree, then we'll have to make that
The
argument.
criteria is
in
very
front of the
clear
ZBA.
about what the director can do and base his decision upon to elevate a project to a major. Personally, I'm just reading it, and it's
Sure.
the code. I don't see that here.
I understand. We can have that conversation in front of the board if that's the path we're gonna take.
So I just want to let you know that on your first director's determination.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I've indicated the way I want this to go. You all, if you have questions, comments, concerns, other ideas, please do it now, or I want to hear the condition, please.
I'd like to make the motion to make this a major.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, this is a major development, and it will be scheduled for planning commission as soon as all outstanding comments have been addressed. Thank you. Anything else? Just, can I have a motion to end the meeting here?
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. What? Well, that was the motion to approve